have anybody joining us by phone today, do we? No, we don't. So that's okay. I was just going to say, if you're joining by phone, you're not going to be able to use the chat box and all that other fancy stuff. So you'll have to speak up when you want to be heard. So with that, I think that's basically everything that we need to know for as far as Zoom is concerned. And I see that we're up to 45 people and people are still pouring in. So we've definitely got our quorum of 20 people. And I'm going to turn it over now to Susan Hartley. She is the president of the Green Party of Prince Edward Island and is going to be our facilitator for this meeting, together with her co-facilitator, Martin Rubin, who she'll introduce. So I'll turn it over to you now, Susan.
Thank you so much, Jordan. As always, right on time. So that bodes well for the rest of the meeting. I want to welcome everybody. Before we get into business, I would like to invite Lynn Lund, the Deputy Leader of the Green Party and the MLA for Summerside Wilmot, to open the meeting with an acknowledgement of the land that we are gathered on today. Lynn.
Thank you, Susan. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather, work, and organize is the traditional territory of the Mi'kmaq people, who have occupied this land for thousands of years. The Island Green Party and our MLAs are committed to working collaboratively with Indigenous people. We acknowledge the harms of our colonial past, and we're committed to improving relationships in the spirit of truth and reconciliation. We appreciate the opportunity to live and learn on these traditional lands in mutual respect and peace.
Thank you so much, Lynn. Before I call the meeting to order, I just wanted to do a bit of a bigger welcome to everybody. It is really wonderful to see all these faces on my screen. As someone, I believe it was Isaac, said in the chat, I wish we were all together doing this in person. Maybe next year. I think that's what we said last year. In any case, well, clearly this is going to be remembered as a year of COVID. For the Green Party of PEI, it has been, as you will hear in our annual report, a year of creativity, innovation, and connection. We've moved forward seeing COVID not as the great excuse to not grow and act and innovate, but as a great challenge. And in the face of that challenge, we have made significant gains in our ability as a party to respond to and build on our members' ideas and contributions and involve members in the important tasks of engaging our community, developing policy, and envisioning our future. It's clear that we have claimed our place as a serious professional political organization on PEI, as evidenced by the strong and effective work of our caucus. And we have done all of this within the limitations that COVID has placed on our ability to fundraise and to meet socially. I especially want to give credit to our wonderful Executive Director, Jordan, who drives our innovation, is patient as we have negotiated the steep learning curve of technology, and is so easy to work with. So as we go through today, and while this is not a telethon, I want to remind everyone that it takes funds to do what we do and to reach the goals that you as a membership have set for us. Monthly donations really are the foundation upon which we can successfully meet our goals for the party. So that's my plug, even though this isn't a telethon. So on that note, what I would like to do is call our meeting to order. And I want to recognize Martin Rubin, who is also on your screen here. Maybe you can wave, Martin, who is our past president, and he is our co-facilitator for this meeting. In our green rules, it's common to have a co-facilitator. Usually, we try to have different genders as our co-facilitators, and the co-facilitator can take over for the facilitator if he or she should need to step away or would like to, or needs to take an active role in a particular discussion, and therefore needs to take their facilitator hat off. So I would like to appoint a minute taker, and I'd like to appoint Chris Marlon Pereira, who has been acting over the last while as the minute taker, non-voting minute taker at our council meetings, and does a fabulous job. So if there's no objections to that, I will appoint Chris Marlon. You can wave, Chris, so we can see you. There he is, as our minute take you. Thank you. So now we will go to the agenda for the business meeting. And Jordan, I wonder if you can pull up the
Absolutely.
PowerPoint. Thank you. Okay, so our agenda today is to go through our annual report, to have a report from our treasurer, Maureen Blake, on the financial highlights of the year, have an address by our wonderful leader, Peter Bevan-Baker, and then we will have our candidate and Ombuds committee elections. And Barbara Dilla is going to make a presentation on the results of the membership survey. And then we will have a discussion and voting on the motions. Before we do the motions, we will have a short break so people can stretch, get out in the sunshine for 5 minutes, do whatever you need to do, because this is going to be it's going to be a very quick 3 hours. So thank you. Is there any other emergency business to be considered that isn't on this agenda? If so, can you raise your hands so someone can pick that up? I'm not seeing any. Anyone else seeing any? Okay, thank you. I would like to call for a motion to adopt the agenda. I need a mover and a seconder.
See Lynn?
Lynn is moving, seconded by David Woodbury. Thank you. Any objections? Any nay? Okay, thank you. I also need a call for a motion to adopt the minutes from 2020, which were circulated by Jordan. And hopefully you've all had an opportunity to see those. So I will need a mover and seconder for the minutes from 2020.
Move to adopt them.
Maria has moved to adopt the minutes of 2020, and Eddie.
I'll second it.
Oh, Justin McKinnon, I believe that was. I seconded it. Thank you. Any naysayers to that motion? Thank you. Okay, we are going to move on to the annual report. And we're going to remind you that if you have any questions, you can raise your hand. If you're not able to raise your hand, someone did mention they couldn't, you could put an asterisk in the chat and Eddie will pick that up. And you can also type your question into the chat if you prefer, and Eddie or Jordan will pick that up. So our annual report for 2021 is really encapsulating most of 2020 as well, I think. So next slide, thanks, Jordan.
Oops, sorry.
Okay, so a key in our year this year and last year has been engaging our membership in keeping with our values of grassroots democracy and organization. And it's been a really exciting year that way. We've had our policy development process start with a pilot event that was capably run by our policy development committee. And that was run in January 2020, which several of you took part in. We also had learning events with our district associations happening in March, and excitingly had new district, can you go, thank you, that's okay. New district associations founded both in Stratford and District 11 Charlottetown Belvedere to join the ever-growing list of district associations that we have on the island, and currently we have 8. Next slide, yeah, sorry. So COVID-19 has had a presence. As I say, I like to think of it as challenges rather than reasons for not doing things. Though we had to postpone our spring convention, and we do hope in October of this year to be able to have an in-person convention and bring forward more policies. In January 2020, we had a very optimistic budget Then COVID hit, and we met as a council and developed a new budget, which I call an austerity budget. It was a very conservative, very bare bones budget that the council voted to adopt. And I'm happy to say that through the year, we definitely did better than what we hoped we would do. And this year have proposed an even more optimistic budget again. So I think we did very well with the fiscal management, and you'll hear more about that from Maureen later. Jordan's doing too many things at once.
Oh, did I go too quickly?
Yeah. So district association was slowed because we couldn't meet in person, but it is ongoing, and I'm feeling quite optimistic about that. And early in the pandemic, we had a lot of ways of keeping members informed and connected, which is on the next slide. So the party partied, and we did. It's amazing the assets that we have within our Green Party community, and a lot of those came forward. We had a wonderful number of engagement activities with our MLAs. We had Dreaming Forward, coming from something Peter Bevan-Baker said in one of his speeches, and we took that forward with Ask Me forums, outside the rail forums where the MLAs had great discussions with members on what they were bringing forward into the legislature in this sitting. We had great skill sharing and social Zooms. There's Sue Whitaker showing us how to make masks, one of which Martin is wearing currently. And we had games nights, and we had the wonderful Dreamathon, which a lot of you attended. Teresa Doyle wrote a wonderful song, which we play now on social media and so on. And of course, our online general meetings. So we've made good use of online technology. Next slide. And then in October, the by-election was November 2nd, but our organizing and our campaigning went through October. And that was a wonderful opportunity to gather as much as we could, but also to show the party that we still had our, and PEI, that we still had our oomph and our passion. Next slide, Jordan, please. Jordan's doing too many things as usual. So these are some of the numbers that that tell you and inform you what the energy around the by-election was. We had 57 volunteers step forward, doing everything from volunteer management, sign management, baking, sign waves, accompanying Chris Van Auwerkerk on his door knocking campaigns, running the office. We ended up with over 3,000 doors knocked. We made the decision to knock on doors, and we had maybe one person concerned about that in all of the 3,000 odd doors that we knocked on. We distributed 8,500 pieces of literature. You know, we had drops before we even had a candidate, and it was a really good strategy to get the community informed about the Green Party. We spent just over $11,000 and had donations from 74 donors. Justin and his teams placed 129 signs, and in the end, we got a solid 27.4% of the electorate voting Green, placing second. Most of all, we had one amazing candidate. All of us on the campaign were so very proud to represent him, and we're very honest in our support of him, because Chris is a great candidate, and you will see more of him, I'm sure. Next. The strategic planning process is something that when Martin was president, before I became the acting president, would say every meeting, we need to do the strategic planning, and he's absolutely right. And we've taken that up, and we have begun a whole process, which is a carefully planned, progressive process that is involving a lot of members and can involve you as well when you get invited to be part of it. We also named our Elections Readiness Committee in our last council meeting earlier this month, And I want to thank Patrick Levesque, Chris Van Auwerkerk, Sandy McEachran, Perry Williams, Sally McDonald, and Justin McKinnon for stepping up to do that. And I am really excited to get that going so that we are ready for the next election, whenever that may come. Other highlights. As I mentioned, last January, we started our policy development, and that led to our grassroots policy motion process. And we're going to be able to see some of those policies that have come out of it and vote on it later today. We have district associations that are active, engaged, and organizing even through the pandemic. We have our online discussions, our general meetings, nature walks, fundraising dinners, and more. So people are not being inactive for sure. So there are more members currently involved in party committees than ever before. And that was one of our goals as a council over this past year. So it's very exciting to have that, and to have, in fact, our co-members, our co-chairs of our membership and volunteer committee are party members who have stepped up to take that lead. So that's a great example of how that's working. So I'm wondering, yes, thank yous, absolutely thank yous to outgoing council members, Maureen Blake, who is stepping down as treasurer, Amanda Woods, who left us a bit earlier in the year, Boyd Laird, our good friend up in the hinterland of Surrey, Margot Madison McFadden, Maria Rodriguez, and of course Martin Rubin, who left in June 2020. And of course, our ombuds person, Kyle McDonald. I also want to thank all the hardworking and fun-loving District 10 by-election volunteers. I helped to organize that campaign, and it was just a wonderful experience. And I want to thank everyone, and of course, Chris and his family. I want to especially thank our monthly evergreen donors. And as I've said earlier today, we really can't run the party without our monthly donors, and we couldn't certainly not have got through our austerity budget without you. I also want to thank, and Barbara will probably do this later, all of the members who took time to respond to our survey, and those who are volunteering at any level with the party, whether on council, district associations, committees, or at events. And of course, the entire Green Caucus for making all of us so proud in the legislature this past year. So thank you all, and everyone else that's at this meeting today, and those that will be listening to the recording if they're not able to be here. So I'm going to open it up to questions. Jordan, how much time do we, or where are we time-wise? I think we're
pretty good. Let's see, we've got right on time.
Okay.
We can take a couple minutes.
We can take questions. Okay, we don't seem to have any questions right now, but please, if they pop up as we're going through this, please put them in the chat, and Eddie will look after that for you. So I'd like to move to our financial report. I'm not sure Maureen has been able to make it to the meeting. If she has, maybe she can let us know.
Yeah, she's not.
Okay.
We can either I can present it or else.
So I'd like to invite our outgoing Secretary Treasurer, Maureen Blake, to share our 2020 financial report with us. Maureen. Okay, we're going to shift a little because we are flexible during these times. And Jordan, I'm going to pass it over to Jordan.
Okay, I will just bring up these the financial report here onto the screen. So just give me 1 second. Okay, so this should be on everybody's screen now. Let me just make that a little bit larger. Now, these were circulated in advance as well. We're calling this preliminary because our bookkeeper had not had a chance to do the full bank reconciliation, but these are, we're pretty confident that these numbers are pretty close to being what they are. There shouldn't be too much change out of the reconciliation. So right now, in terms of our assets, we have a total of 95,585,000 in assets. Most of that is in our election reserve fund. And as you know, most of our election reserve fund is actually reserved for individual districts. It's based on the reimbursements from elections PEI that districts received more than 15% of the vote in the last election. So we're holding some money in reserve for them. So everybody will be able to start with a good amount of money in the bank, at least a couple $1,000s in most cases. We don't have very much equipment or merchandise. Mostly that's, you know, t-shirts and things like our button maker and things like that, which come up to about $1,000. So that's nothing much there. In terms of liabilities, the Green Party doesn't have any actual debt. We just had a few accounts payable as of December 31st that hadn't been paid yet for about $2,200. So that basically brings us to our total equity of $93,346 ending the year 2020. Now I'll just go over to our income statement. So this is where you can see our revenue, and we've got the revenue broken up into general revenues. So that's donations that are made to the party generally. That also includes donations that were made to the District 10 by-election campaign because the party managed that campaign financially. And there was also, so we had 63,841 in general donations, and then another 6,272 in donations that were specifically targeted to other district associations. For a total revenue, when you include a few t-shirts that were sold, it wasn't a big year for t-shirts, and a little bit of interest revenue, we're just over $70,000 in revenue for 2020, which is really great because I can tell you that when we were after COVID sort of struck and we made our austerity budget, as Susan called it, we were basically reckoning with about 49,000 or so that we would, so we actually did better than we expected. So just taking a quick look at expenses here. The big one is administrative services contracts. So that's mostly myself at the moment in my roles in administering the party as the executive director. We also have some social media management that falls under that. Not very much in the way of you know, office supplies or things like that. The next kind of larger expense figure that you'll see is our digital infrastructure at just over $4,000. And that's for things like, you know, our database and our website and, you know, Zoom and all of the different tools, you know, that we use to run the party. That's kind of our office in the cloud, which is our only office, because what you'll notice here is that there's no expense line for office rent, and that's because we don't have one. Yeah, everything else was pretty low. There was some money spent on some things getting ready for the spring convention that we were hoping to have last year, which didn't happen because it was supposed to be at the end of March, just after the pandemic broke out. But we do still have some of the things that money was used to pay for, to prepare. So we're hoping that this fall we're going to be able to have a convention and put them to good use. Then we had about $2,600 in bank and credit card processing fees. This is a figure that we're hoping will be a bit lower in this next year. So we've made some changes recently to our payment processors to reduce costs. $3,050 for our insurance. And that's insurance that protects both the board and as well as all volunteers in the Green Party. So if you're volunteering and something happens to you, you'll be covered. And some other minor expenses here, including advertising and promotions for just under $1,700. That's primarily advertising that we do through social media these days. And for the District 10 by-election, we spent, as we saw earlier, about $11,431 altogether. That's not exactly what you'll see on our election return to Elections PEI, because they only look at what you're spending on certain things within the specific election period. But some of this was expenses that we undertook even before the election was called, and that didn't qualify as an election expense. And then the district associations also had some expenses. That was primarily for fundraising things, gatherings, and some other smaller expenses that kind of added up to just over $1,000. So total expenses of $53,000, which means that our revenue over expenses for 2020 was just over $17,000, which is great because that was a year when we were thinking we would not be able to put any money aside for the election fund, but unfortunately we are able to put a good chunk into our election fund from 2020. So that's wonderful. At this point, I'll just open up to any questions that anybody might have. Okay, feel free to either raise your hand, or you can write in the chat. Pauline has a question.
Hi, Jordan. Thanks. Is
Yes.
it possible to get a little bit more of a breakdown of the digital infrastructure costs now or later?
Yeah, I can definitely do that. I mean, what I can tell you is that about $2,500 out of that 4,000 would be for Nation Builder, which is what we use for our website. It's our database, it's our payment processor, and it's our what we send emails out from. So it does a lot of, it's kind of the workhorse of the party. So that's the biggest one by far. Then there's a few $100s in there for our phone IVR system. There's, you know, like our Zoom subscription, the graphic design program that we use called Canva. So yeah, that's kind of, that basically sums it up. Then there's smaller things like when we do OPA vote, when we use OPA vote to do nomination meetings and provincial council meetings, you know, that's something that we pay for. That will fall under that category as well.
Thanks very
Basically,
much.
You're
That's
welcome.
good. Thank you.
Okay. Ryan, I see you have a question.
Yes, I was just, you had mentioned about the bank and credit card processing fees that you're hoping those or expecting they will come down. Are you able to expand upon that? Are those transactional fees for credit card exchanges?
Yeah, exactly. So, so a number of years ago when we first started processing credit card payments, we were on a, we were using Elevon payment processing. And then starting in 2018, our nation builder actually got its own inbuilt integrated payment processor. And they actually, because we're a nonprofit, they're offering us even a smaller fee than the typical. The typical would be 2.9% plus 30 cents. Nation builder charges 2.2% plus 30 cents because we're a nonprofit. And unlike Elevon, which was charging us a bunch of other, minimum fees and everything every month, Nation builder doesn't have any of those. So we could actually save quite a bit of money by ditching Elevon, which we've done actually just officially last month. There was very little going on, going through it still, but I've officially turned that off, and so our fees will be quite a bit less in the coming years.
Jordan, Peter Rukavina has a question.
Okay, I see that Peter Rukavina has a question as well.
In the chat.
Oh, in the chat. Okay, let me open up the chat. Second. What is the anticipated budget need for the next provincial general election? That's a great question, Peter. That's one of the things that we're asking our elections readiness committee to get together and think about. I can tell you that altogether in 2019, I know that provincially, like the central kind of budget was something around 60,000, and then there was about 100,000 or so spent by all of the district campaigns altogether. Now that did feel like pretty tight budgets, especially I know on the provincial side, we were really doing with a lot less than some of the other parties were doing at the time. So I think we're going to have to look at getting a little bit more than that for the next provincial election. But that's going to be something that the Election Readiness Committee will be able to answer much better once they've thought about that. So thank you, Peter. And any other questions? Okay, Lynn says that she loved that our membership is as enthusiastic to unpack a budget as their caucus is. Oh yes, Isaac asks if the monthly donations is included in the general assets. Well, yeah, so monthly donations definitely are part of our donations, and actually it's they're a big part of our donations. In fact, I don't have the figure right here in front of me, but I believe that for that last year, it worked out to about 30,000, if not a little bit more, out of all of our donations. Maybe even I think 34,000 comes to mind. So monthly donations are really, really significant. We probably would have not really gotten through last year very well if it weren't for all of our evergreen donors, because of our inability to kind of have the kind of in-person fundraisers that we would normally have. So thank you so much to everybody who is a monthly donor. If you're not a monthly donor and you would like to, please do. Even $5 a month makes a really big difference. And if all of our members donated $5 a month, man, we would be pretty good for the next election. So I think Eddie can put the link into the chat for everybody if you want to be able to do that online through a credit card. And we also have ways to connect your bank account for just an automatic monthly withdrawal of any amounts. So there's a couple of possibilities there if you'd like to join the cohort of the monthly donors. Okay, were there any other questions? Okay. Then I am going to pass it back to Susan, and I'm going to stop the sharing.
Great, thank you so much, Jordan. Stepping in there when we needed you again. Are you muted? feedback there. Feedback is always good, but some feedback is better than others. So what I'd like to do now is introduce Peter Bevan-Baker. For those of you who have forgotten, he is the leader of our party and an inspiration to us all. And I don't really have to say any more than that, I don't think, to introduce Peter, do I, Martin? No. Okay, so let's give Peter a big round of applause by typing pluses in the chat to applaud, or just giving a clap. Peter.
Oh my, thank you, Susan. Thank you, everybody. It's so lovely to look out at so many smiling faces. I do wish we were together, of course, but such is the way of the world. I remember sitting here, well, presumably exactly a year ago, looking out this very same window, and as Susan said at the beginning, not imagining a year later we'd be replicating that experience. I want to start off by saying Kwe, Jalasi, bonjour, bienvenue, welcome everybody. C'est un grand plaisir d'être avec vous tous ici aujourd'hui. It's so lovely to be with you all today. And I want to start out by thanking a number of people. That's already been done by Susan, who thanked everybody except herself, of course. And as has been demonstrated already today and continuously and absolutely consistently throughout the year, Susan has been kind and caring and brilliant. And she used the word classy to describe Chris Van Ouwerkerk in his candidacy. And I think Susan absolutely fits that word as well. She's done a fantastic job with enormous skill and beautiful humanity throughout this year. Thank you, Susan, for that. Applause for Susan. I also personally want to thank Jordan Bobber for doing the work of 7 or 10 or 20 people. You saw the amount of money that we pay our executive director in that financial statement, and Jordan works enormous hours, again, with great skill, seemingly endless energy, and a beautiful attitude. So thank you, Jordan, for doing the enormous work that you do, the important work that you do to keep the party going. And this is volunteer work, Volunteer Recognition Week. And every member of this party volunteers in their own way. And the members of council, of course, put in a lot of hours. Many of the people who sit on the various committees that we have, as Susan just said, more than ever before, put enormous amount of time in. And I know everybody's time is short and precious. And I really, really, I'm very grateful for all of those members that we have who volunteer their time and their money. And I know Susan said she didn't want this to sound like a telethon, and I don't want it to become that. But the emphasis on the monthly donations, I think, is a worthy thing. It's a relatively painless way to donate to a party, and it does ensure that all of those things that are there when the next election comes around, and that could be sooner than any of us imagine, that we have the ability to run an effective and a competitive campaign. So thank you to all the volunteers out there. One final note of thanks to my dear wife, Anne, who is not sitting beside me. She couldn't take it anymore. No, she decided to go. She'll be back later for the voting. But everybody who is in a position of elected office, and I think I speak for all caucus when I say this, it's a demanding job, it's a punishing job, and you need support from those around you. And if you happen to be lucky enough to be married, and particularly lucky enough as I am to be married to such a kind and beautiful, loving person, I don't take that for granted. And she's there to support me and comfort me and console me and celebrate with me and all of those different parts of what it means to have a life in politics. So thank you to Anne. Love you so much. It's traditional for the party leader to give a retrospective of the year. Susan gave one from a party perspective, and I'm going to give one from the leader's perspective. But I'm not going to look just back at the last year. I'm going to look back at 4 particular moments in history on April the 24th. And my first point of contact will be April the 24th, 1921, 100 years ago. I'm then going to look 6 years ago on April the 24th, 2015, 2 years ago, April the 24th, 2019. And my last point of contact is going to be 3 days ago, something that happened in the legislature. And I hope to tie together all of those points of reference and make them relevant to the work of the party today. 100 years ago, the world was just recovering from a global pandemic. The Spanish flu started in lasted 2 and a bit years. So by the time 1921 came along, the world had sort of largely recovered, but somewhere between 20 and 100 million people had died from the Spanish flu. And that was, of course, on a world where the population was far, far less than it is now. It was somewhere between 1 and 1.5 billion people. We're now somewhere between 7 and 8 billion people. And the current pandemic, then the next global pandemic, which happened 100 or so years later, about 3 million people have died so far, and sadly, it looks like many more will die. But relative to the last global pandemic, this has been, in terms of mortality anyway, a much lesser event. 100 years ago, the world was emerging from a world war. And here on Prince Edward Island, it was very different. The population was about 100,000 people. Almost all of those people lived rurally. There was, if you were an islander, you were, the words islander and farmer could be used virtually synonymously. Almost all islanders were either primarily or at least in part involved in farming. Everybody lived rurally. About 90% of the population lived on a farm. And it was a very different place. There's a beautiful book written by Ed MacDonald called If You're Strong-Hearted. And it's a look at the 20th century on Prince Edward Island. And he goes decade by decade. And back in the 1920s, an election happened in 1919, and a 7-year-old Tory government was under Aubin Arsenault, who, there's a building on Euston, as we probably all know, named after him, was replaced by a new premier, a Liberal premier, of course, in that ping-pong politics of Prince Edward Island between the Reds and the Blues. And his name was Premier Bell, John Howard Bell. Now, of course, we have 2 Bells in the legislature now. We have a blue Bell, and Zach, who is the newly elected member in Charlottetown, and we have a green Bell, Hannah Bell, who also represents the Charlottetown district. But this was a red Bell. This was John Howard Bell, who took over from Premier Arsenault. And during the 20s, the ping pong politics, unusually, at almost every election, the government was changed. And it was a time of great turbulence after the World War, and there was a lot going on. But politics had that metronomic sort of pattern that island politics developed 80 years before that, and has continued until at least the last election here on PEI. And there's a couple of interesting quotes from Ed's book from the 1920s. I'm going to read one of them. And he says, and this was about roads. Back then, there were no asphalt roads on Prince Edward Island in 1921. All roads were dirt roads, but it was at that time that the good roads movement was born. And as Ed says in his book, and I quote, "The provincial government had discovered the hidden benefits of federally subsidized road building. It was a patronage bonanza, a rare opportunity to reward political friends while providing a benefit to all citizens." So I just find that interesting because of the parallels with where we are today. There were very few cars, of course, on Prince Edward Island back then. There were only about 10,000 tourists came to the island every year. All roads were dirt roads, and there was no public health system. The budget line item for health in 1921 was $1,000. Today, of course, we have a health budget, which is upwards of $600 million, I believe. And the island that was present 100 years ago has changed almost unrecognizably. And one thing to note is that 1919 election, where it switched between the Tories and the Liberals, that was the last election on Prince Edward Island where women did not have the vote. It was in 1922 that women finally gained the franchise to vote. And as all of you who have been following politics on Prince Edward Island in the last couple of weeks, we're still trying to expand that franchise to everybody who deserves to have it here on Prince Edward Island. But I find it shocking that less than 100 years ago, women, it was only men who voted the parliaments in here on Prince Edward Island. Plus ça change, plus c'est la même chose. So let's fast forward to 6 years ago, April the 24th, 2015. We were in the midst of a provincial election, the election when the first Green member was ever elected here in Prince Edward Island. And this was brought home to me yesterday morning when I opened my Facebook. That's not something you would have done 100 years ago, but I had a Facebook memory pop up, and it was a picture of one of the pivotal debates during that 2015 campaign. And sitting on the stage were 4 men, and it was Rob Lance representing the PC party, Mike Redmond representing the NDP, myself for the Green Party, and Wade somebody for the Liberals. And what struck me was that I'm the only one left standing. And it was a strange thing to look back at that you're the sort of, in some respects, the older statesman of island politics. And that was a weird thing to recognize. So 6 years ago, all of the leaders of the parties were different other than our own. Many are gone, but what arrived was a new party. A new party was born and established here on Prince Edward Island in the legislature and gained official party status very shortly after we were elected. And that could have gone one of 2 ways. Their third parties had been elected here on PEI before, of course, and we could have followed their path and fizzled out after one election, or we could have started to build something substantial, something long-term, something disruptive, delightfully disruptive. And I'm now going to move to 2 years to the day, and that was April 24th, 2019. We did build something substantial and long-term and delightfully disruptive. In that, on that day, it was the day after the provincial election when the first Green Party official opposition in North America ever was elected, and it was here on PEI. And that was an exciting day. We held our first caucus meeting. This was the day after. This is weird. I could see people clapping and waving, and of course, if I was in front of you all, as I would love to be in a hall, you get your pacing and you deliver a speech in response to the energy that you're getting back from the people around you. That's impossible to do online, and I apologize if I feel as if I'm rushing over things or not stopping appropriately or maybe going too slowly, but I do appreciate all of the reactions that I'm able to see, and it's one of the things about COVID that we've all had to learn to do, is to adjust to this sort of speaking to an empty room, apart from my 2 dogs, and not quite knowing what the reaction is. Anyway, 2 years ago on this day, we had our first caucus meeting, 8 people, very newly elected, some of whom really literally did not know each other. I look around, I can only see one of 3 pages here on the screen, of course, and I think all caucus members are present. I haven't had a chance to flip through them all, but I see a number of very familiar, lovely faces on this screen. So thank you to all of the caucus members who are with us today. There were 8 of us. We were probably sleep deprived. A couple of us may have been hungover. We were extraordinarily excited about what lay ahead. And we met that first day and we had a stacked agenda. We had a lot to learn. And one of the things that I was determined, and the staff that had helped guide us through the election and were present in our sort of scaled down office before, when Hannah and I were the only Green members to that point, was that we were going to be ready for the House whenever it opened. And we spent a huge amount of time and energy preparing as best we could for life inside the legislature. And in many ways, the last 2 years has been a sort of a gradual and sometimes an excruciating acceptance that the wide-eyed idealism that so many of us came to politics with collides with the hard-edged reality of what it is to live and work inside politics. And I don't say that apologetically. I don't say that in any way as an excuse for some of the things that we've done and the things that we have not been able to achieve as a caucus. I say that because doing politics differently is something that's very easy to say in an election campaign. And as we found out over the last 2 years, it's extraordinarily difficult to practice day to day in the spiky, in the rascally, and in the tangly world that is the day-to-day life of politics. But I want to say immediately and with great pride that I absolutely believe that we've walked that path. The whole caucus has walked that path, and we have remained, our caucus has remained intact, our minds have remained intact, I think, but most importantly, our integrity has remained intact. And I think politics can be looked at in a number of ways, and some parts of politics absolutely revolve around compromise, around understanding that you may not be able to get everything that you want done immediately. And that can be hard to take, particularly when you have high ideals and you come in with enormous amounts of energy and belief that you can change politics. And that it's been a difficult 2 years in some respects to acknowledge that you cannot do everything that you would like to do as quickly as you would want to do it. But when it comes to, again, not compromising our principles and maintaining our integrity, something one of our staff members said the other day in a caucus meeting has really stuck with me. And she said, we work in a really high stakes environment. We work in a high pressure job, a high pressure environment as well. And yet our office, and she was talking about the office of the official opposition, it always feels like a place of calm, and a place where I feel, and this was her speaking, I feel cared for and supported and loved. And that, I mean, that means the world to me, that we have managed to, despite all of those adjectives that I use to describe the world of politics, that within our office, we have managed to maintain that level of support and kinship and willingness to help each other out. And not to lose that humanity, which is such a critical part of no matter what work you do, that you hold that with you at all times. And I'm enormously proud that we've managed to do that. And I have no idea what it feels like to work or live in another party. Of course, I've never done that, and I don't know how their legislative offices function, but I think I can say with a high degree of confidence that those words have probably never been spoken in any other legislative office. And that's special, that's really precious. And that's not something that I believe any of our caucus or staff take for granted. We work on that every day. And I want to pause for a moment and give gratitude to the staff who are in the office of the official opposition, an extraordinary group of people, without which we would not be able to do the work that we do. And I also want to give particular gratitude to the MLAs who work, as I said a minute ago, in an extraordinarily difficult environment. And they are gracious, they are unfailingly thoughtful of each other, and we always work towards those green values of respect, of egalitarianism, of being inclusive, non-violent. We don't beat each other up in our office. It's lovely. Just the group of people that I work with and the attitude that we have developed. And this is something I think unusual and extraordinary, and I never take it for granted. I pause and I stop, and I'm grateful for it regularly. And it's nice to be able to say that out loud and in public. Thank you to all of my colleagues in the caucus and staff in the office. So that was 2 years ago. 3 days ago, we passed a piece of legislation, of green legislation in the office, and it was Trish Altus's bill. I saw Trish, I don't think she's on the front page here of my thing. Yeah, there she is. She is on the front page, smiling and waving. We've passed an unprecedented number of bills in our 2 years as the official opposition. And some of them have been really profound changes, and some of them are incremental steps. And Trish's bill was an amendment to the Health Services Act. And I'm not going to go into all of the boring details of exactly what that act does and what the amendments changed. But I do want to say that getting legislation passed is really hard work. It's one of the things that I learned early on in my time as an MLA was that to change any piece of legislation, even if you are doing something as simple as, for example, the Election Age Act, where really the only thing you're changing is crossing out an 8 in 18 and putting in a 6. That sounds like that should be a pretty simple thing to do. It's never, nothing is ever as simple as you imagine. Anyway, Trish brought forward a bill to bring more accountability back to the health PEI board, which was stripped away. You may remember that they all resigned en masse about 3 years ago when the Liberals changed the legislation to take authority away from the board and give it to the minister. Not an uncommon practice here. Oh my gosh, I promised I wouldn't go into the boring details, and here I am. So I'm going to stop with the details now. I'm just going to say that there are lots of problems with governance here on Prince Edward Island, huge problems with governance, and enormous changes need to be made for governance to leapfrog to where it should be. And we would all love to see that happen immediately. And the bill that Trish brought forward ended up in a tied vote in the House. Almost never happens in Prince Edward Island history, and the Speaker had to break that tie. And quite appropriately, and in line with convention, Colin Levy voted in favor of our bill so that debate could continue. That didn't mean that the bill passed, it just meant that debate would continue on the bill and it would not die. So we brought the bill back, but only after speaking with government members to make some minor adjustments. It's still far better than it was. It's not what we want, but it's an improvement. And I guess any bill that you bring forward, you want to be able to say at the end, are things better because of this bill, regardless of what aspect of governance we're talking about? And it's inarguable to say that because of Trish's bill, things are indeed better. They're not the best, they're not fantastic, they're not perfect, but they're better. And an enormous amount of work went into doing that. And I'm so proud of Trish for doing what she did with this bill. And it's not what we want, but it's a step forward. And sometimes you do make huge leaps. And I'm thinking about some of the climate action bills that Lynn Lund has brought forward in the last couple of years. Hannah's poverty bill, which is a groundbreaking piece of legislation, which just got us some national attention. Those are huge leaps forward. And I can point to a number of other acts that we brought forward. But sometimes you have to be content with a small step forward, recognizing, okay, we have to get there and we can't get there in one giant leap. So let's make some step, let's make a little step forward. Had we not made those compromises, the bill would have gone nowhere and we would have been stuck in the status quo. So I think what I'm trying to say is that I think we have matured as a caucus, and I know that we have matured as a party to the point where we understand what it is to actually live and work in politics. And it's hard. And there are restrictions placed on you. I think even had we formed government, we wouldn't have been able to transform in a fundamental way all of the things that we know need to be changed. As an analogy here, and I'm almost finished, as an analogy here, I think there's a fundamental principle when it comes to social work or counseling or therapy, and that is that you have to meet your patient where she or he is. And I think our caucus had to recognize that we needed to meet politics where it was. And that required I would love to have thought that we could transform politics immediately and substantially and profoundly, but that's not the case. We had to meet politics where it was. And I think we've made enormous changes here, both in terms of the tone of how politics is practiced here and the manner in which it is practiced, but also in some of the fundamental issues that have been brought forward, the discussions that we have in our House. If the Greens were not in the House, we would not have the discussions that we are having on, for example, Lynn is bringing forward a bill next week on the an environmental Bill of Rights. That would never have happened, well, would never be brought forward. We talk all the time about eradicating poverty. We talk all the time about the impossibility of growth everlasting and marrying an economic system within the environmental realities of living on planet Earth. There's so many ways that we have truly transformed politics here. And I think we need to stop and recognize that, but also realize that as the official opposition, particularly now in a majority situation, we won't be able to do all of the things that we would love to do. I think we've matured substantially over the last 2 years, and I think we're building an organization that is remaining true to its values, which for me personally is above all the most important thing. I see no point, and I've said this before, I see no point in establishing a party which mimics and replicates the attitudes and the behaviors and the failures of the parties that were already there as options for islanders before. We are doing politics differently, and that's something to be enormously proud of. I frequently say how lucky I am, and I'm lucky in so many ways. I'm lucky because I have so many good people who have gathered around the Green Party over the last 6 years. And it's lovely to be able to have an opportunity to express that gratitude to you all, from the membership to the council, to the staff in the office, to my colleagues in the caucus. I really hope that our 2022 AGM is practiced in person and that I can see you and maybe even hug a few of you. That would be lovely. But until then, I want to thank you all for the tremendous support that you give to me personally as the leader, and to all of our caucus members, and for each of you for being a part of this incredibly exciting adventure that continues. Walaliok. Merci. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Peter. You know, every time you speak, I feel like it's a personal conversation. So it doesn't mean that it's online. There's so much you say that engages my thinking and wanting to respond and to engage. And I think that's just your amazing quality of being approachable and transformative. So thank you so much. There is so much in what you said that I'm so excited to take to the Elections Readiness Committee, because what we can do to win an election is to express all those things the wonderful caucus is doing and how we're transforming the island and get that information out there. So yeah, so let's keep talking. And thank you so much for everything you do in all of the caucus. And please do not do your research about what it's like in the other parties' offices. So yes, please keep your comments going. It's lovely in the chat. We're going to move on to our elections now, our council and ombudsperson elections. I'm going to introduce Martin Rubin as our returning officer. Before we begin the elections, you will notice that there is one position that no one has stepped up to be nominated for, and that is the position of president. So I just want to speak a bit to what that means for us moving forward. So in accordance with bylaw 2-5, provincial council positions for which no nominations have been received by the deadline for the 30-day voting period shall be subject to an open call for nominations from the floor. At this general meeting, And it is subject to at least 5 members in good standing supporting that nomination. Nominations from the floor or members nominated from the floor shall be elected by a write-in ballot. If no nominations are received from the floor of the AGM, Provincial Council has the option of appointing an interim president, either from among elected provincial councillors or from outside of Provincial Council until the next general meeting. Or Provincial Council may, by resolution, reappoint the provincial councillor whose term has elapsed to their former office until a successor is appointed or elected. I just want to make clear the options regarding that position. And now I'm going to pass it over to Martin as the returning officer. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan, and welcome everybody. I'm wearing a mask because I'm in a room with other people, so I hope you don't mind. I still haven't got my shot yet. But anyway, I just want to say it's nice to see all those familiar faces out there. And Peter, thank you very much for those lovely remarks to the membership. Fantastic. It was wonderful to hear them. So as a returning officer, I'd like to say hello to everyone. I'll begin the process by explaining the voting process. And then I will invite each of the nominees for Provincial Council and Ombuds Committee positions to briefly introduce themselves to you before calling for nominations for the position of president. We will then take a few minutes to allow everyone to cast their votes. Because all the voting is taking place online this year, we will be able to announce the results immediately. Every member in good standing or whose membership has been expired for less than 1 year and has renewed prior to this AGM should have received an online ballot from OPAVote. If you have not yet cast your vote, the ballot will be resent to your email address now. If you cannot find your ballot, please check your junk mail or search your inbox for OPAVote. If you are still unable to find your ballot, please send a message about this to GPPEI host in the chat and we will look into it for you. So I will now introduce our nominees I will now invite our nominees to introduce themselves and why they are running. So the first one I'd like to ask to introduce themselves is Patrick Levesque, who's seeking the position of Vice President. It's a 1-year term until 2022. Patrick?
Thank you, Martin, and to all the members out there. I know many of you will have known me for a while, but for those who don't, I'm Patrick Levesque and running for the Vice President position. I first got involved in the party in 2015, really because the party's core values really resonated with me. I had a background in rural community development, so I was really excited by the commitment to grassroots democracy and kind of the idea of decentralizing decision-making, which really nobody else was talking about and really still isn't talking about. That and also the Green Party being the only one that's really appreciated the climate crisis and what that represents and what we need to do. So I really saw the Greens as a kind of a progressive party for the future, which I didn't see in the other parties. To go along with that, as we just heard, the party has a really incredible leader that I found just really intelligent and kind, but also really competent and just generally inspirational, as I'm sure everyone, you'll all agree. And then for the past 6 years, I've had really the experience of a lifetime being able to work alongside Peter in the legislature, from the days when it was just Peter and I huddled in the basement of the Coles building to now when we have, as Peter has said, an incredible team 16 people in the official opposition office. And that's all been great, but to be perfectly honest, my ambitions are higher. I want to see this party continue to grow and to evolve into a truly governing party. But that's going to be a lot of work to get there, which is why I'm putting my name forward. And I think my background in rural community development and my expertise in politics can really help the party grow, in particular in rural PEI, but at the same time, staying true to who we are and what we believe. So I'm looking forward to working with party members and with council over the next year. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Patrick. That was very good. Thank you very much. I will now ask Chris Marion Pereira, who's seeking the position of Secretary Treasurer for a one-year term until 2022.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Hello. Okay. I'm Chris Marion Pereira. I joined the party actually last year, and I was holding the gold, note-taking role for the council, and I got lots of experience with that. And I have been in other associations, and I have experience in the previous in other associations as well, holding roles. And I have been studying for the my financial licensing. Currently, I'm studying for it, and also I was a business major student in UPEI, so I have the knowledge of the doing the accounting work. So I am seeking this position because I would like to bring my skills and experience, which I got from my studies and the other associations, to the party to grow. And I love to work towards the party, and also I'm very passionate about helping people. And also I share the core values of the Green Party, including leaving a sustainable environment and society for the future generation. So I am looking forward to work with the council members this coming year. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. I will now go to the candidate for the membership and volunteer chair, Ryan Cook. He's looking for a one-year term until 2022. Ryan?
Thank you. Can everyone hear me? Yes, very good. I actually hadn't prepared anything to say, but I'll give you a short introduction. So I'm Ryan Cook. I'm, put my name in for the membership and volunteer chair. A bit about me: I started, joined the Green Party in 2018, and worked on the District 9 campaign and the 2019 election, and I became involved with the party, and I found that it really resonated with me. I found the people here, the people running for office, and then the members were very sincere, and try to walk the walk and not just talk the talk. And that really matters to me. I was thinking about this recently. One of the first days, I'm an engineer by trade, and one of the first days I was in university, the professor said, write on the back of a card what you want to see yourself doing in 5 years. And I wrote, well, I want to be working on advancing renewable energy technologies and developing windmills, that kind of thing. And then a number of years later, I got into the energy efficiency and optimization business, and I've been doing that for about 10 years now. And I really, kind of looking back, I'm feel like this is just the right trajectory, and this is the right place for me, and the right group that really takes those issues seriously. Environmental issues and climate change, conservation. And that's why I wanted to become more involved in the party and offer my more of my time and support. And I want to make sure that everyone who wants to get involved has a place they can help. And I think that the M&V chair position would really support that. And I want to work with the party to help grow more district associations and start more initiatives and really spread the word about the good work that we do here. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much, Ryan. I will next call on Maria Rodriguez, who's seeking the position of fundraiser chair, a 2-year term until 2023.
Thank you, Martin. Thanks, everybody. I think many of you know me, some may not. I'm Maria Rodriguez. I'm originally from Venezuela. I came to Canada 27 years ago. Been living in PEI for the past 11. And I've been involved. I started volunteering with the Green Party in 2018. And what drew me to the party was my interest in, amongst other things, ecological justice, which I think we need to have social justice, and also identification with the core values and principles of the Green, and in particular, grassroots democracy, active citizenship. Those are all very important for me. So my background before joining Green Party, I have a few things in common with some of the previous presenters, because like Ryan, I'm an engineer by training, but an agricultural engineering, and like Patrick, I have some background in public policy and in particular agricultural policy and in participatory processes and engagement. So I've been in the fundraising chair position for 1 year. It was vacant in 2020 when I first offered. I had a year left. And my interest in being a counselor, it was, and this is something that many of you have said already, that we want to grow the party, right? We want to, and in order to grow the party, I thought we need to build capacity. And in order to build capacity, I think that we need to empower our base and our membership so we become stronger for the next stage, right? And then I was happy that in the 2020 council, the one is now outgoing, I found the same passion. We have to empower the members, build a membership. And actually my first involvement with the party was with the policy process committee, just try to gear up to have our policies coming from the grassroots and built by the members. And I think that now we're finally arriving, and today we will, for the first time, we're finally arriving to the fruits of those efforts, right? So to grow the party, and what's got to do with fundraising, you may ask yourself, or I ask myself too. And I think that fundraising, it's important. It's a very important part of building that capacity, because this is how the party supports itself. We are supported by contributions of individuals, and the evidence shows that the cornerstone of our fundraising is our membership. And the more empowered members we have, the more engaged we are, and that's why we have to all work together. With Ryan, with Patrick, with Susan, with everybody. The cornerstone of our fundraising is the membership. The more empowered members will mean there more engagement, and that will expand the party base, and this will in turn expand the funding base. But it also, more importantly, will amplify our reach to allow us to grow. So that's how I see the fundraising role as part of the bigger picture. So I look forward to working with the new council and through our strategic planning processes. to continue to advance these goals, not just in fundraising, but in other areas to help empower membership. And one day, hopefully, to have the Greens, I guess, how do I say this? Doing politics differently and governing PEI. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maria. And next I'll introduce Aaron Brown, who's seeking the position of Central Representative. It's a 2-year term until 2023.
Hi, so my name's Aaron Brown. I'm a proud resident of Cornwall, PEI. I've been really keenly interested in politics here on the island since I moved here about 20 years ago to attend UPEI. And over the last number of years, I've really been drawn to the Green Party's 21st century vision for the province, particularly on things like housing, mental health, environment, particularly. So with that, I really feel like my professional background, including spending the last 4 years working in the affordable housing sector, as well as other work I've done with different local and national charities, and then also lived experience that I have as the father of a child with a physical disability, really kind of gives me a particular set of skills and perspectives and kind of inspiration that I look forward to bringing to the Provincial Council and helping the Green Party PEI win the next provincial election. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Aaron. Next, I'll call on Omer Imtiaz. He's seeking the position of Eastern Representative. It's a 2-year term until 2023.
Hey everyone, I'll keep my speech short, but I just wanted to introduce myself real quick. I'm Omer Imtiaz. I was born and raised in Dubai, the United Arab Emirates. No, it's not in India, but it's close to India. And I came over to Canada in 2007. I've always been in Atlantic Canada. So I was in New Brunswick first, and I came over to UPEI in 2009. Long story short, met my wife at a field party out in Brackley, and we have a little baby now. She's 16 months old. We've been married now 9 years, but I'm really passionate about the Green Party. Peter actually approached me a few years ago on Facebook, and we got together, we had some coffee, and I was just kind of like amazed that he's a leader. Back in Dubai, you don't have access to these kind of people. You're not so close to people, because in a huge population, you would never see your mayor or, like the high profile people. And Peter was so humble. And so that really got me interested. And that was around the time I met Josh Underhay too. And Josh, man, I only met him twice, but those 2 times that I met him, he had a profound impact on me. And Peter and I got talking, and I got talking with Josh, and I felt like I share a lot of the same values. And I felt like this party was different. I really, really felt that way. People are so humble, so down to earth, so kind and loving. I can't say I've ever experienced that anywhere else. So I felt like this was the moment for me to bring in my international experience, a different perspective, and do what I can to benefit the greater, good for the people that are around us. And the reason why I'm running here for Eastern Rep is because I have been living in, working for the past 9 years at the Gillis Lodge out in Belfast as a resident care worker. So I've gotten to, work with the elderly. I've been fortunate enough to know the families and the kids of all these people. So I've really gotten to know the people in this area. I've also bought a house in the area back in 2019, and I've been working on that since. So I'm really, really excited to move in, hopefully this summer, and do what I can to, round up Greens here on the Eastern PEI.
Thank you very much, Omer. It's nice to meet you. I'll have to be nice to meet you in person one day. Next, we have Zane Nicholson, who's seeking the position of male ombudsperson. I apologize. 2-year term until 2023. Zane is not with us today, so I'm going to ask Jordan to just say what he would have said, okay? Introduce him. Thank you, Jordan.
Hi, yes, Zane let us know that there was a chance he wasn't going to be able to make it in time. So he asked me to pass on this message. He says, "Hi everyone, I'm sorry I can't be there for the AGM today. First, thank you everyone that voted. It's always great to see our democracy in action. I promise you that I'm excited to hear the results of the Ombuds race. I am more than sure that whoever you have chosen, Greg or myself, you would have made the right choice. With today being a prime example, the Green Party of PEI has kept its promise of being a grassroots party, and I am honored to be a part of it. I hope this finds everyone well and look forward to seeing you all face to face very soon."
Thank you, Jordan. Finally, there's a guy by the name of Greg Bradley. I don't know if he's got a beard or not, but he'll be running for the position as well of male ombudsperson, and it's a 2-year term again until 2023. Greg? Greg, I saw you there. No, he might not be there anymore.
Yeah,
He might have left. Okay, yeah, no. Okay, well, we wouldn't have any remarks from Greg, of course, so.
No, he didn't send it.
Okay, well, if that's the case, then I'm going to continue on. So I will now ask whether there are any nominations from the floor for the position of president. As per our bylaws, anyone nominated for president must have been a member in good standing for at least 30 days prior to the AGM and must be nominated by at least 5 other members in good standing in order to get on the ballot. If there are 2 or fewer candidates, the vote will be conducted by way of an anonymous Zoom poll, which will include a none of the above option. If there are any more than 2 contestants, a special open vote ranked ballot will be sent out to members in good standing who have registered for this AGM only. The winner must obtain greater than 50% of the total votes cast. So before I call for nominations for president, I will be reading the description of the president's role on the Provincial Council, something I'm not very familiar with. According to Article 2 of the Constitution, the president shall chair meetings of the Provincial Council unless the council chooses another chair by resolution. 2, the chair to chair or delegate the chairing of general meetings unless members select a different chair by resolution. 3, issue notices of meetings of Provincial Council and take steps as required to ensure that meetings of Provincial Council are held in accordance with the Constitution and bylaws. 4, generally coordinate the activities of the other councillors in the course of their duties. 5, ensure the compliance of the party, Provincial Council, and individual councillors with applicable laws, party bylaws, and this Constitution. 6, be the primary spokesperson for the governance aspect of the party. And 7, have other such duties as Provincial Council determines from time to time. I will now call once, 3 times for nominations from the floor. You may nominate yourself, another person, you may nominate another person, yourself or another person, if that person must be present at this meeting and must accept the nomination. All nominees must be supported by 5 members in good standing aside from themselves. Calling once for nominations from the floor. Lynn Lund.
Thank you, Martin. I would like to nominate Susan Hartley for president. She has done such an incredible job. And for 5 supporters, I have Omar Imtiaz, Trish Altaz, Susan O'Brien, Harry Williams, and Carla Bernard.
Thank you very much, Lynn. Do I guess at this point I have to ask for a seconder to that motion, to that nomination?
Well, I guess she just.
Oh, she just, you just named them. I apologize. I guess I'm going back to some old ways there. We got 5 people to support it. Thank you. Okay. Are there any other nominations from the floor? Calling a third time for nominations from the floor.
You have to ask Susan whether she accepts it.
Yeah. Susan? I'm asking Susan, and she's right beside me here. Will you accept the nomination from the floor?
With great gratitude, I will accept it, and humility as well. Thank you.
She has to think about it, but she said yes.
If I can just correct myself for the minutes, I apologize. I said Susan O'Brien. I meant to say Catherine O'Brien. We don't have a Susan O'Brien that I'm aware of, so my apologies.
Thank you for that, Lynn. Appreciate it. The proceedings are being recorded, so that would have been a very big one. Thank you. Okay, so now I'm going to ask everyone to take 5 minutes to find your ballot in your email inbox and cast your vote. We will shortly be putting a Zoom poll up on the screen to vote for the position of president. I'm going to be providing a warning when there is 1 minute left to vote. I will now ask that the voting be, okay, sorry. I'll ask the voting to start now. So 5 minutes.
Martin, I just wanted to mention that Greg Bradley is back.
Oh, yes, Greg's back, so you can get him to introduce.
Greg, could I ask you to introduce yourself? We missed introducing you for the position of male ombudsperson. Greg?
I think his camera is covered.
And so is his microphone, it looks like.
You can ask him to unmute.
Greg, can you unmute and say a few words? Okay.
Oh,
Yeah. Hi, hi, Greg.
hi, folks. You might hear some noise in the background there. I hope it's not making a mess of my sound here. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Okay, great. I'm just going to keep it brief. Been in the political realm most of my life, had a great interest thanks to my dad, but kind of lost interest about 8 years ago and kind of really felt there was no chance of anything good coming out of politics. 6 years ago, I've stumbled upon the Green Party. And the more I learned about the leader at the time and the people who surrounded me, it was obvious to me this was my new family. And it was me, only enhanced. And at this time, can you hear me? Great. Anyway, as many of you know, I helped with Peter's campaign back about 6 years ago now, and it was one heck of a night, as Peter talked about, the night that he got elected. And anybody who was part of that will never forget it. Then I ran in the provincial election 2 years ago, and did pretty decent, I have to say, for a guy that's never thought he'd do something like this. And the reason why I did it is because I felt I had to be part of this movement, not a party. And it's affected me deeply. And basically, I guess really what I want to say is, like, I'm a carpenter all my life and I'll always be a carpenter. But the Green Party has showing me a part of me that I didn't know was there. And I always felt a responsibility, but I know I have one now, as in to my fellow men and the earth in general. And it was so nice to see people that were like-minded, so many people. So I'm here because I want to help out to be your ombuds person, your male ombuds person, because I've always been a bit of an underdog all my life, and I like to dig the dirty stuff out sometimes to make sure things are taken care of. If it has to be, I'm the guy that you can call and complain, and I will bring your problems to the committee. And if there's anything that I can do to help, I will do whatever I can to help. So I hope I don't fail you. So that's all I can say. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Greg. Very kind, very nice words there. Okay, I'm going to give everybody now the 5 minutes to vote. And we will come back in 5 minutes.
And I'm just going to mention,
Yeah,
I see that there's a few people saying that they haven't received your ballot, so I'm going to look into that right now. I'm also going to try launching, I was having some technical problems with trying to edit this poll to add Susan Hartley's name in it. So I'm going to try launching it right now to see if that kicks in the changes. No, it's showing name or none of the above. So I'm wondering if we can just agree that name is Susan Hartley. So if you are voting for Susan Hartley, please vote for name. And if you would rather it not be Susan, then you'd vote for none of the above. And I'm gonna look into the people who are looking for their ballots.
I think that what happens is that if you had voted in advance, it's not letting you into the ballot anymore, right? I think that's
correct. I'm just gonna look and see
what's happening here.
I'm gonna see the voting status. So just, I just want to make sure that everybody has the Zoom poll showing up on your screen for the presidential vote. So just to clarify, Susan is not in the ballot for the rest of Provincial Council because we didn't know who was going to be running. So we've got a Zoom poll, which should be on your screen right now where you can vote. You're not seeing that?
No.
Oh, that is so strange. Yeah, I'm not seeing any votes registered here.
Now it's here.
There it is.
It's not now.
Oh, I wonder what changed. Okay, great. So something happened and now you can see it. That's great. Oh, Eddie had to do it.
We have to go. Okay, folks, thank you very much for voting, and I am now going to ask Jordan to put up the results from the OPA vote poll and from the Zoom poll so that we can see the results of the election.
Okay, actually, I think we might need Eddie to show the results of the Zoom poll because he had to launch it for some reason.
We do have the results.
So Eddie, if you're able to share, like stop the voting on the poll and then launch the, share the results with everybody. Oh, you've got them, okay.
We got them, yeah.
Doesn't show up on my end.
I hear an echo when you speak, Jordan.
Oh yeah, sorry, Omer, that's because there's a couple of us in the same room here, so I think it's just feeding back. Okay, so I'm going to go into OPA vote now. I'm going to share my screen.
So for those of you who may not have seen it, Susan Hartley got 94% of the vote.
Okay, so for Vice President, Patrick Levesque is elected with 105 votes. And just a few, none of the above, 6 none of the above. For Secretary Treasurer, Chris Marlin is elected with 107 votes. Only 4 none of the above. Congratulations. For membership and
There's
Sorry,
no
Jordan,
sound,
you're on mute.
oh, sorry.
You're muted.
Okay, now I should be unmuted, am I?
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. Too much going on. Okay, we've got yeah, so membership and volunteer chair we did. For fundraising chair, Maria Rodriguez is elected with 102 votes. And well, it won't show me. Oh, there we go. And none of the above. For central representative, Aaron Brown is elected, 108 votes and 3 none of the above. For eastern representative, Omer Imtiaz is elected, 108 votes and 3 none of the above. Congratulations. And for male ombudsperson, this was the race. Ooh, okay, looks like there was some, we've got rounds of counting here, of ranked ballot counting here. So Greg Bradley got the most votes in the first round. Then there was a little bit transferred in the second round, but the winner is Greg Bradley. It was a very close race. So congratulations, Greg, and as well to Zane for putting your names forward.
Thank you very much, Jordan, and thank you for sharing the results. It's always interesting to see how votes go. So it's my duty at this point to ask for a motion. I'd like to call for a motion to adopt the results of these the Provincial Council and Ombuds Committee elections. I'd like to call for a mover. I see Isaac Mazer has his hand up. Thank you, Isaac. Can I have a seconder, please? I see Ole has seconded it, so thank you, Ole. Anybody not in favor? Motion carried. Thank you very much. I will now pass it back to Susan.
Well, thank you. That was very exciting. All the technology and everything. So thank you, everybody
Oh, I didn't have mine.
who voted and everybody who stood up. We are running a bit behind, but we have some really engaging presentation coming up. So Sally McDonald, I will invite you to come on screen and share the members survey with us.
Thank you. Can I have permission to share my screen?
Is she co-host?
Oh, or,
You are now, Sally.
okay, thank you. And this is hiding the, sorry. Jordan, can you help me figure this out? I can't seem to see where, I can't actually start the playing.
Um,
Oh, I just found
I'm
it.
not as, oh, you found it? Okay, great.
Yeah.
Great.
I think the issue was the menu was hiding it. So I want to begin by introducing myself. I'm Sally McDonald, and I'm here on behalf of Barbara Dilla, and we are the co-chairs of the Membership and Volunteer Committee. And I want to express our congratulations to the newest members of council and tell you a little bit about the survey that was conducted. So last fall, shortly after the by-election, Barbara and I had been working together on the by-election. We volunteered with the endorsement of Provincial Council, to take a closer look at the membership aspect of the party. And based on our analysis of the results of the 2019 survey, which had been conducted 8 months after the general election, and it was completed by 111 members, basically we concluded that, and this is no surprise, that members are the foundation of the party, and that membership engagement or disengagement is critical to the success of the Green Party of PEI. Our goal was to take the pulse of the members of the party. We wanted to learn more about why people join, and perhaps more importantly, what keeps us here, and how we can better understand and meet the needs of our members. The survey was completed by 166 members, or 28% of our total membership. And there's far too much data to share all of it here on this beautiful sunny day. So we're just going to provide a brief summary, and we're going to conclude with an offer to become more involved and dig a bit deeper and that sort of thing. So just, for example, of the respondents, about half have joined since 2018 and since then, and the other half from before that. There's a lot of other information about the demographics of our respondents, but we want to say that for the most part, people are pretty happy. If you look at, in terms of the Green Party overall, I mean, so the darkest green represents very satisfied, the lighter green represents satisfied, yellow was unsure, and red is not satisfied. So you can see that overall, the Green Party, the respondents rated the Green Party overall very, very high. And also getting accolades was communications from the party. And you can see that they're not quite as high here for the approach to fundraising. And so that's something that we want to dig into a little bit further. I think that, Maria's already alluded to that. And in terms of, even though communications got a high rating, the website, a number of people have pointed out that they think that it could use some modernizing as well. And as part of that, we want to develop an area for more interactive feedback from members and among members. And I'll just quickly comment the last part there, the policy development process. The rating was probably about 68 or something like that, between very satisfied and satisfied, but we've had an amazing policy development process since this survey was done. And I think that you'll find that if we were to ask people again, that they would perhaps respond differently. So overall, people are happy. And people join primarily because of the principles or the core values of the party. But they also join and stay in the party, not only because of that, but because of the personal and the social connections. And they told us that they really appreciated and prefer attending an in-person event, and that's no surprise to anyone. We also enjoy networking with like-minded members, volunteering our skills, talents, and knowledge, and also developing those things. You'll notice that the lowest one here was participating in a committee is only 10%. So I'm going to put that in context as we ask people to consider becoming involved in some of the initiatives that members have recommended. So sorry, here, just a second here. They recommended that they thought that membership engagement would be improved if we had a new member welcome program, but also a mentoring program and a training program to take care of our current members. These initiatives would probably help people feel a little bit more connected to the party and to each other. And so if we were to focus on those first three things there as opportunities for members to become involved and share their ideas and so on, it would be a chance to get to know each other a bit more, share our hopes and our visions for the future, to connect the dots between the data in the survey and other data that's available in Nation Builder and among our members and within various committees that are occurring now. If we can share our ideas and get to know each other and share our hopes and vision for the future, we will be working towards and supporting the party's core values and the issues that we care most about. So in terms of working together and stepping up and helping each other, we invite you to take a closer look when there's an email or an opportunity to become involved, not only in committees, but for shorter term things like task forces, focus groups, and think about, in order to make this grassroots party completely grassroots, we want all members to feel they have a voice, but also to learn from each other. So you'll notice that we have a new membership chair, and so we would ask you to help us help you, and we invite you to keep an eye out for any opportunities for participation, but also if you have any feedback and want to know more about some of the data in the survey, we invite you to email the membership at greenparty.pe.ca, and we will respond. The membership committee will respond to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sally, and thank you for all the work that you and Barbara have done on this survey. It's really, really valuable information, both for involving members and doing things that will engage members and moving forward for election readiness. So thank you so much. And I'm sure as people look through that data, there's going to be lots and lots of questions, and you're more than capable, you and Barbara, of responding to that. So thank you. We are going to take a 5-minute stretch break. We are about an hour later than we thought we'd be. So we will be moving on, but please take this 5 minutes and get outside, get some sunshine, unless you're Anna Keenan and you've been walking for the last 90 minutes. You know, maybe you could find her and join her for 5 minutes. So anyway, we will be back in 5. Thanks.
Okay, and you'll bring them. Okay, folks, I hope you're all back. Everybody have a good break there. Okay, so let me just get set up here. Okay, so folks, this is going to be a first for the Green Party of Prince Edward Island. We've never done motions like this, and we've never done motions like this, especially virtually as we are today. So it's going to, I ask that you give us a little bit of leeway for how the process goes. We've sent it out. You understand what the process is all about, but we're going to do our best at this end. If we make a mistake, or if you think we should do something different, please put up your hand or please put something in chat. We would be happy to hear from you. There's nothing wrong, with bringing to our attention if you think we're not following the green rules as we have designed them. So we appreciate all your feedback, and we're going to do our best here. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Jordan to put up the first motion.
Actually, we're going to do the little presentation.
Oh, you're going to do, okay, go ahead.
All right. Oh, let me just see. Oh, I am unmuted, am I?
You are.
Okay, perfect.
You're muted.
Oh, no, I was muted. Okay, hello, everybody. I'm just going to take us through a very quick run through of the process by which we'll be discussing motions under the green rules. We have sent this out before, so hopefully you've had a chance to take a look, but since it's very important that everybody understands the process, we just wanted to go through it very quickly again. So I'm going to focus on the discussion at the general meeting part of it. That's where we are right now. So when a motion is introduced, it's going to be read out, just basically the motion itself. We're going to have a moment of silence just for people to consider the motion and to think about any questions that you might have, or anything else that, maybe an amendment that you might want to propose. And then we're going to open up a clarification period for you to just ask your questions of clarification. So that won't be a time for saying whether or not you oppose or support something. It's just to make sure that you understand what the motion actually means. Then we're going to go into asking the motion originator whether in the course of, in the last 30 days since the motion's been published and members have been looking at it, if they've gotten any feedback about some changes that they want to consider making to the motion. So basically, if the originator of the motion considers the changes to be good ones, they can call that a friendly amendment. It doesn't mean that it's automatically adopted, but the facilitator will ask the meeting whether anybody in the meeting has any objections to those amendments. And if there is none, then they will just be considered adopted. If there are objections, then there will be full discussion on the amendments before those are voted on and officially adopted. And then getting into the discussion, what you're going to notice is we're going to be doing a lot of voting, using a lot of Zoom polls, not just on the final yes or no, but the facilitator will poll the meeting at different times to basically see how people are feeling about it. One of the things about the green rules is that we're trying to get to outcomes where it's not, really divided votes. And there's some people that are deeply unhappy with motions and they go forward. We want to make sure that we have some discussion, come up with maybe some changes that could, address concerns that people have. So, so the facilitator will sometimes poll the meeting basically just to see how you're feeling. Of course, any member can speak either for or against a motion. So you can put up your hand, or like if you aren't able to raise your hand using that feature, just mention in the chat that you'd like to get on the speakers list. And so you can speak for or against, or you can propose an amendment. And we'll be putting up the motions on the screen, and we'll be trying to write down your amendments so that people can see exactly what they'd be voting for or against. If you want to move an amendment, you're going to require a seconder. So there's going to have to be at least one other person who wants that amendment to be discussed. Under our bylaws, amendments need to preserve the original intent of the motion. So you can't propose an amendment that basically changes that motion out of recognition into something completely different. And of course, amendments we discuss through the same steps, make sure that everybody understands them. We do a test for agreement, a discussion, and then move on to a deciding vote on the amendment before moving back to the full motion as amended or not. I already mentioned that the facilitator will use the test for agreement polls to gauge whether there's need for more discussion or whether we're ready for a final vote. If the discussion continues on a motion for more than 10 minutes, the facilitators may also poll the meeting to see how we should proceed. Should we just go to a vote? Should we continue the discussion? Or if there turns out to be some disagreeing parties, we might ask them to go to a side meeting, which I'll get into right away, or potentially even if there's a recognition that the motion just needs a lot more work or consultation, the members may vote to table it till the next general meeting. So what happens if there is a disagreement? So if there's firm disagreement, the disagreeing parties are invited to go into a side meeting, which is essentially a Zoom breakout room. So we'll open up a Zoom breakout room. Anybody can go into there. We have a couple volunteers with us from our motion submission committee today, Maria Rodriguez and Debbie Keefe, who have volunteered as part of our fairness committee to help to facilitate those discussions, basically help to bring the parties together and find some potential ways of improving the motion to build a compromise essentially and a consensus. And if members go into a side meeting, then they would report back at the end of the meeting when other motions have been discussed with the outcome, and maybe they have an amendment that they've agreed upon to present at that time. And if after discussion of a motion, there are still members who are indicating that they strongly object to the motion, you'll be invited to share the reason for your objection and be prepared to share what are the green values that are at issue for you. And then you or any other member can suggest an amendment to hopefully make that motion acceptable to you, just in the spirit of trying to make a really strong motion. And if we are nearing the scheduled end of the AGM and there's still motions left to discuss, the facilitator will poll the meeting on whether or not to extend the meeting time. So we're scheduled to end at 4, but we can go for longer in order to hear all the motions. And we're going to try to keep the discussion moving so that we can get through all the motions. And of course, we're already in the meeting, but we had given a lot of opportunities for members to suggest amendments in advance of the meeting. So hopefully we don't have a huge amount of amending on the floor happening, but of course, if that's something that's needed, that's everybody's right. And then finally, when we get to the vote, it's gonna be yes or no final vote. And just remember that bylaw and policy motions require a simple majority, 50% plus 1, while constitutional amendments, of which we'll have 1 here in this amongst our amendments, will require a 2/3 majority to pass. Now, there's still a ratification step that happens after this for some of these, namely, if so bylaw amendments, if they pass here at the AGM, then they're considered, they take effect immediately. They need no further ratification. But for policy motions and constitutional amendments, then within 60 days, those amendments must be ratified by electronic ballot by all members. So even those who weren't able to join us today will have a chance to weigh in on that. They'll see what the results of this meeting are, but they'll be able to consider it and either vote to ratify it or vote against it. And they require the same majority thresholds that are required here at the AGM in order for those policies or constitutional amendments to be considered passed. And that is the whirlwind tour of our process here. So hopefully, you know, we'll get into it, and the best way to learn is by doing. So I'm going to turn it back to Martin, and we're going to open up with our first motion.
Thank you very much. And whatever I said before Jordan started to speak, that's what I'm supposed to say now. So there you go. We've already started off by reversing what the things that we were supposed to say. So as Jordan went through the requirements for how we would go through the motions, you will find out that it is fairly complex. So that's why I said what I said. And that is that please bear with us. We'll do our best to follow the process that Jordan set out. And if we don't, please just put your hand up or let us know that you think we're a little bit offside, and we're very happy to address that. So so Jordan, can you please put up the first motion? We'll see how it goes. So I'm going to ask for the first motion. I gotta be organized. I gotta be organized here. I would like to ask Pauline Howard to read off, to present her motion. Pauline, are you with us?
I'm with you. Thank you, Martin. So this motion
Pauline,
is the.
Can I ask you to read off your first motion, please?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Pauline.
Okay, good. Yeah, okay, so this is the motion for the PEI Commission on Sustainable Future for Farming. And a little bit of background, this motion was prepared about, 2 years ago, or certainly last year, way before motion 7 was presented by Peter in the
Pauline?
House. Yes?
Pauline?
Yes?
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'm just going to go to the process itself. The process at this point is just to present the motion itself.
Okay, you just read it out.
And then we will, if there's any clarification after, if you believe that it's important, we will do it. But right now, you first present the motion, and then we'll all follow the same process, okay?
Okay, so you just want me to read the whereas?
That's correct.
Okay. Whereas agriculture is of major importance on PEI economically, socially, and culturally, and the sustainability and resilience of this industry is critical to our province's ongoing success. Whereas sustainability means long-term strength in the environment, social, and economic areas. Whereas agriculture domestically and globally is highly dependent on government policies, and these policies, together with markets, determine what systems become or remain economically and environmentally viable. Whereas agriculture is interconnected with land and water use, fisheries, biodiversity, health, plant and animal health, as well as with the economic and social fabric of both rural and urban communities, and agriculture policies must consider these intersections and the multifunctional nature of this industry. Whereas agriculture occurs in natural environments and ecosystems, and it is highly dependent on these natural resource base to remain sustainable in the long term. Whereas exports are essential for PEI agriculture due to its small population, but a commodity model based on low prices and high volumes puts island industries in disadvantage due to our small landmass and fragile ecosystems. Whereas farming practices can influence the role of agriculture in the climate crises, and decisions made on these practices can either contribute or amplify the crises or be part of the solution. Whereas active citizenship and self-determination, local self-resilience, and a just society are core values of the Green Party of PEI. Therefore, be it resolved that the Green Party seek that a government-sponsored, inclusive, nonpartisan commission be established to examine the future of farming on PEI. The commission will be comprised of representatives of farmers, processors, First Nations, and the civil society, including rural and urban communities, as well as subject matter experts. The commission's mandate will be to develop and consult on a 10-year plan on how PEI can transition to a model of agriculture that is sustainable economically, ecologically, and socially, with consideration to all connected issues and what role government, industries, and citizens can play in fostering this transition. And I'm done. I think I'm done. Do I have to continue on to read the rest of it?
No, that's it. And we're just going to have a moment of silence so that everyone can just think about what the motion is about. Okay, please? Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. And now I'm just going to ask for any clarifications on the motion. Pauline, have you received any friendly amendments or any discussions since you put forward the motion and to the membership?
No.
Okay. Is there, you had a few items that you wanted to discuss about how the motion came about. Do you believe that those items are important for the membership to understand the motion and how and to you know, determine whether the motion, how the motion you know, would affect the province or how we go forward?
Well, if people watched Peter's motion 7, they might wonder what's the difference between this motion and the motion that he put forward in the House of Assembly on March the 23rd, which is well worth watching if people haven't seen that. And I would say that the difference in this motion and Peter's motion was Peter presented his motion with the idea that it would motivate general debate about the future of farming on PEI. This is actually asking for something concrete. This is asking for a committee to go forward. So it's concrete.
So it's more of a, so as we all understand, it's more of a process, you know, how the process would work going forward. Okay.
Ryan has a question.
Ryan, can I hear what your question is, please?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask if the intent is to replace any of the existing advisory boards or just to set up another advisory board in the resolution to recommend the replacement of, or to just create a separate and parallel.
Thank you,
change
Ryan.
the mandate of the existing agricultural boards, I guess is what
Right.
I'm asking.
Okay. Thank you, Ryan. And I think the proposer might have clarification there for Ryan.
Ryan, that's a really good question. When you say I'm not suggesting that the dismantling of the PEI Federation of Labor or the NFU or the COPC or any of the current agricultural marketing boards or associations. what I see happening with the commissions, like for example, on the Land Commission or the Water Commission, I see them operating in silos and not addressing the intersections of agriculture. And so this commission would be tasked with ensuring that the intersectional issues are considered.
Thank you, Pauline. Maria, did you have a question or clarification?
No, it was a comment with respect to the advisory boards. The commission does not intend to replace an advisory board. This is a common, I guess, process that is used, and there was actually a commission on the future of agriculture in PEI about 11 years ago, and it was kind of government sponsored, same as this one, but the findings of the commission and the report are somewhat outdated. It was a long time ago. Many things have changed, and this is just a policy instrument to address the problem in a holistic way and with the right stakeholders involved.
Thank you, Maria. And Ryan, you still have your hand up. Do you have something to ask, or is that from before?
I just wanted to expand upon that. What I meant was that under the Executive Council and Engage PEI, there is existing the Farm Practices Review Board, the Land Matters Advisory Committee, which have similar kind of purposes. This could either set up a parallel board, or the mandate of those boards could be changed. I'm just asking if there's, I guess, if that resolution is intended to do that, or just to completely replace it. That was really the essence of my question.
Yeah, Ryan, our intention is not to get into the nuts and bolts of how this is done, like step 1, step 2, step 3, but rather to call on it to be done.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to just at this point ask to do a general poll to see where folks are with this motion. And I'm going to ask Jordan to do a general poll, please. Can I please ask everybody to respond to the general poll that is up?
Are you guys seeing it?
Okay, can I ask for the results of the poll, please?
Well, it doesn't look like there were any votes. Are you seeing?
I'm seeing the results here. We have 76% indicating that they understand that the motion as presented, and there's 24% that are saying they understand but are neutral but can live with it. 0 and 0. So I think we have general agreement on the motion, I believe, and I would like to, at this point, is there any other comments from anybody at this point? Anybody else have any?
Ola does.
Comment on the chat.
Ole, can I please ask for you to let us know what you're thinking there? Ole?
He's asked the question.
Oh, sorry, I think it's a great motion. I was just wondering if it's directed enough. I think Pauline is working towards a goal. She's hoping that it will result in, a better environment and all that. But should that be expressed in the motion? So the commission isn't just like like the Commission on Basic Income had a goal to look at producing something that would meet the basic income requirements. are there requirements that should be in here, like lowering the use of chemicals, for instance, or create a better environment, or anything like that? I mean, I support the motion. I'm not against the motion. I'm just wondering if it needs to be made stronger.
So it would be my understanding, Ole, from your comment is that in order for your idea to be put forward and included as part of the motion, if you're suggesting that it be strengthened with a slight amendment, or are you at this point satisfied with the motion and for it to be addressed at a future date?
I would be ready to address it at a future date. I just want to bring up my concern.
Okay, thank you so much, Ole. I think it's a good point, and it's something that the mover of the motion probably would consider going forward. Okay, so having the general agreement that we have, I'm going to call for the vote. I'm going to ask a poll that Jordan to put up the poll, please. Okay. I am now going to ask Jordan to bring up the results of the vote. And we have 100% yes, 0% no. We have the motion passed. Congratulations. Excellent. We did it, the first one. I think that's
this is so exciting. This is the first member-driven policy of the Green Party of PEI, grassroots, and it's on agriculture. What else can we wish for? This couldn't
have been any better. Thanks, Maria, for that. Very good. Well, listen, we're going to go on to the second one. How are we doing? We're still got
half an hour.
Yeah, we got 24 minutes according to my clock. We can do it. Okay, next motion.
Okay, the next one is protection of pollinators. Stan's handling.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. We're just bringing it up first. Just hang on so everybody can see it.
Yes, I'm sharing it.
Okay. So Stan, can you please read your motion?
Whereas honeybees, bumblebees, and other wild pollinators provide essential ecological and economic services that benefit all residents of PEI, human and non-human. Whereas the health and well-being of honeybees, bumblebees, and other wild bees worldwide is increasingly threatened by many factors, including habitat loss, climate change, pesticides, and the spread of disease, invasive parasites, and pests. Whereas the small hive beetle is one such invasive parasite pest that infects both honeybees and commercial bumblebee colonies. Globally, it is spreading rapidly, and international small hive beetle researchers are calling for urgent actions to slow its further spread. Small hive beetle are also known to establish in wild honeybee colonies, and additional research is urgently needed to determine if and how small hive beetles may be impacting other wild bee species. Whereas PEI's 2018 and 2019 protocols regarding the importation of honeybees into Prince Edward Island were based on a scientific data-based zone approach that excluded hives from small hive beetle positive areas. Whereas PEI's 2020 and 2021 honeybee importation protocols are not based on science or epidemiological data, They allow hives to be imported into PEI from small hive beetle infected areas and even from small hive beetle infected beekeeping operations. Whereas the required 10% inspection process has only a limited chance of detecting the beetles at a low infestation rate before importation, and there is no effective eradication plan for small hive beetle once it has been introduced into PEI. Therefore, be it resolved that the Green Party of PEI promotes strong evidence-based policies to protect the health of pollinators on PEI, including reducing the use of pesticides, protecting honeybees, native bees, and other pollinators from the introduction of exotic pests by establishing import conditions that are science-based and conserving and expanding the amount of healthy pollinator habitat and forage available on PEI.
Okay, thank you very much, Stan, for that motion. Is there anything that you would like to add at this point? From the time that to help everyone understand the motion, but more importantly, to maybe that you may have come across from the time that you promoted it to the AGM here.
Well, the motion has been already reduced in strength from what I had written last year. Last year, I wanted this motion passed and it was dropped because it was not felt that it could be done without at the spring meeting. So it's already been, I don't think it's that controversial myself. It's been reduced because there is no hope of stopping the importation this year. And
okay. Is there anybody out there have any questions or any comments on the motion? This is just to bring everyone, if they have any thoughts or any questions at this point, so everybody knows what they might be. No?
I have a question.
Oh, okay, go ahead. Who is that?
It's Pauline.
Oh, hi, Pauline. Yes.
Hi, Stan. You say we can't stop the importation this year. My understanding is that if we can't stop the importation, then we're going to have the diseases. Is it too late? I guess is my question.
well, we won't necessarily. They didn't come in last year. So
because of COVID, maybe?
No, the COVID worked against us. Before COVID, we sent inspectors. So there was 10% inspection by Ontario. And then we sent our inspectors as well. They did another 10%. Now, people don't remember, but Peter asked at the environmental debate, there was a question at the environmental debate whether the candidates would commit to 100% inspection. And anyway, that's not happening. And when they get inspected, now the province inspects them here because they can't send inspectors to Ontario because of COVID. So COVID has worked against us. But anyway, it isn't a certain thing. And what happens when they come here isn't a certain thing either. And it could be that the government will go the route of New Brunswick and say, okay, now we've had small hive beetle here. We're infected. Let's just
Stan, we didn't catch the last part of your answer there. You froze.
I'm sorry. It could be that the government will say that if they find them here, the government will say, okay, well, they've come in now, and so we can just bring them in the way New Brunswick does. Or Peter asked the question in the House what they're going to do. I don't think they've really answered satisfactorily. Anyway, I don't think this motion is that controversial, but if anybody has specific problems with it, I could discuss it.
Right. Yeah, no, thank you, Stan. That's exactly what we're doing here. So thank you. Okay, any other questions? Well, I'm going to do a general poll here and just to get a quick idea of where everybody is. So thank you. Okay, can I ask you, wait, can I ask for the results, please? Wow, 94-6. And it's 0 down below. It looks very, very good. So I'm going to, I think at this point, given the response to that poll, I'm going to ask for a poll for whether we go ahead with the motion itself. Jordan?
Oh, that's Eddie now.
Oh, I'm sorry, Eddie. It's from this end, it looks like magic, but these guys are doing fantastic. I haven't, okay, there we go. Here's the deciding poll. Okay, folks. Can I have the results, please? 98% yes, 2% no. Motion passed. Congratulations, Stan. Your motion, along with your supporters, has passed. Motion number 3.
All right, guys. So this motion is.
Citizens Assemblies.
I
Citizens
think it's
Assemblies.
Citizens Assemblies. Yeah,
Thank you.
that's me. Hi. Hi, everyone. I just wanted to take a quick pause and check in with, I suppose, Susan as the president for the meeting, because we are coming up on the 3-hour mark, which was the time that I imagine most of the 50 people on this call have had reserved for the meeting. I think it could be possible to process this motion within 12 minutes time, but I just wanted to ask, are we intending to go over, or are we intending to adjourn the meeting for, reassembling and dealing with the remainder of the motions in maybe a week or two?
Thank you, Anna, for the question. Martin, did you want to take? No? Okay.
I'll take sure.
Martin, you're on mute. Yeah.
Sorry, the meeting does go to 4 o'clock. You're right, Anna. And we were going to do a motion at approximately 4 o'clock to determine whether or not everyone wanted to continue. But I think you've raised it in a timely way, and we're just at, we're just before 4. So maybe what we'll do, and I will let Susan, I think, proceed with the motion to determine whether or not we proceed with the meeting past 4 o'clock, or whether we decide to end, because I don't want to get in right in the middle of your motion and have everybody stop right there. So thank you very much, Anna. Your timing was very good.
So is it over to Susan now, or? Yeah, okay. Susan, you're on mute.
Yes, I'm unmuted. A strange occurrence. Thank you, Anna, for bringing that up. You and I had a bit of a chat in the chat about this, and at 4 o'clock or whatever comes close to that, which would be now, we open it up for a motion as to whether or not we want to extend the time today. And I think there can be some discussion as to what options are if we decide not to extend it. We do have, just for clarification, we have 1, 2, 3, 5 more policy motions and then 4 bylaw and constitution motions. So Ola is wondering if we can do it by email. I don't think that's possible because we need the discussion and the green rules of order process, but thanks for that suggestion. So we could open it up right now for any one who wants to make a motion to extend. Lynn is suggesting a Zoom poll. That might be a good idea if we want to do a poll, whether or not to extend.
Meeting extension, but we should decide how long are we saying to extend it for.
If maybe somebody could make a suggestion as to how long we would extend it for.
Could we extend to the end of the policy or a certain number of policy presentations, motions?
See, I would think it's better to set it.
I think it's better to set a time.
Maybe decide what we do after.
And then we can decide again at that point in time. Because it's hard to anticipate how long that would take. So Lynn is suggesting a poll the room for another half hour, for another 30 minutes. Okay.
There's a couple of people with their hands up.
Isaac, you have your hand up, and then Eddie.
Yeah, I was just going to propose another half an hour as opposed to until the motions end, another half an hour. But I think Eddie had his hand up before I did.
Okay, Eddie?
Yep, sorry, I would be seconding Lynn's motion for a half-hour extension, and I might have launched that poll a little bit quickly, but let us perhaps have it reflect a half-hour extension.
Oh, I didn't see them poll.
Oh, there's
okay.
No poll up?
Yeah, there is a poll up for those of you, and it says, do you consent to extending the meeting as suggested by the facilitator? And we want to add, do you consent to extending the meeting for 1/2 hour as suggested by a member present? Everybody could vote now.
I don't see the poll.
It might be at the top of your screen. Mine was. I didn't see it right away, but it was there.
No, I don't see the poll.
Okay, can we ignore that poll, Eddie, and launch another one with 30 minutes in it?
What happens with the motions that did not get discussed today? Is the intention to do an extension of the meeting, but at a different time?
That will be the second question. First of all, we'll see if we want to extend it for 30 minutes, and then we'll see what we do after that. Do we have another poll?
I'll just jump in. I'm sorry, it'll take too long to re-edit the polls, so please consider this for the 30-minute extension, this poll.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, do we have results? Okay. All right, thank you. We have voted to extend it for 30 minutes. I appreciate that. I'm going to go back to Anna, and Anna promises us 12 minutes.
Well, I will try. I apologize to those of like the 38% of the people in the middle in the meeting who, sorry, it was echoing for a second, who didn't want to stay on beyond 4 o'clock, but I will try to make this brief. So the motion is entitled, and I think the link was in the chat a while back, Championing Citizens Assemblies for Deliberative Democracy and Building Civic Capacity, especially on the issue of electoral reform. It's got a fair bunch of whereas statements, so here I go. Whereas citizens' assemblies, which are truly random and thus statistically representative selections of citizens compensated for their time, engaging in a facilitated deliberative process on a fixed number of issues with access to expert advisors, are widely regarded where they have occurred as having considerable legitimacy and public trust because participants are a representative body of citizens that have no vested interest in the outcome. Whereas citizens' assemblies are representative of the general population, build civic capacity, focus on shared principles, and are fact-based, and allow for a more nuanced and meaningful citizens' consideration of the issues than a simple yes-no referenda. Whereas citizens' assemblies, unlike referenda, are immune from manipulation by fear-based marketing campaigns and issues increasingly more concerning in our present day as more people rely on social media and online media for their news sources. Whereas citizens' assemblies, unlike Canada's present system of electoral representation, are immune to manipulation from donors or political parties with vested interests. Whereas citizens' assemblies can be and have been used to discuss multiple issues in which politicians are at an impasse and are unable to agree with each other for political reasons. Whereas all politicians and all parties are widely perceived by the public and each other to have a vested interest in the design of the electoral system. 5 more. Whereas countries with proportional representation have better representation of equity-seeking groups in politics, better results in climate action and more trust in democracy and more satisfaction with politics. Whereas support for proportional representation is specifically named and enshrined in the Constitution of the Green Party of PEI and as part of the Global Green Charter core value of participatory democracy. Whereas PEI's Electoral Reform plebiscite in 2016 and referendum in 2019 both demonstrated that there is a strong appetite for electoral reform in the island public. Whereas PEI can lead Canada, and on the issues of electoral reform and democratic renewal and climate action, Canada needs leadership. Whereas international examples exist of citizens' assemblies being able to successfully create recommendations on multiple separate policy issues, therefore, be it resolved that the Green Party of PEI supports the use of citizens' assemblies to consider and develop nuanced proposals for solutions to challenges where progress has been impeded by the limitations of our system of electoral representation, particularly partisanship, and where nonpartisan citizen deliberation could make progress. Be it further resolved that in 2021, the Green Party of PEI considers electoral reform as among the highest priority challenges which could be considered by a PEI Citizens Assembly. Be it further resolved that the Green Party of PEI will champion the formation of a PEI Citizens Assembly in the coming years, whose mandate includes proposing, in a report to the Legislative Assembly, a specific and detailed design for an electoral system that is tailored to PEI's needs and which it believes would meet the approval of a majority of the island public. Be it further resolved that the mandate for a PEI Citizens Assembly could cover multiple issues beyond electoral reform alone. For example, climate action, housing, mental health care, and municipal amalgamation, among others. Be it further resolved that a Citizens Assembly for PEI should be formed of at least 27 willing, randomly selected citizens compensated for their time, who are broadly representative of island society as reflected in the census, including age, gender, social class, and regional spread. And finally, be it further resolved that the members of the Legislative Assembly should respond to the report of the Citizens Assembly by collaborating across party lines to table legislation to enact the changes recommended by the Assembly, and should not respond by calling a referendum on the recommendations. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Anna. That was that's a long motion, my goodness. But it's a good motion. So I would like to now ask Anna, as the proposer, to provide any further details, any further information that may have come up from the time you propose the motion to the time of the AGM, and whether there's whether you had any discussions or something that you believe could inform the motion at this time.
Thank you. Yeah, the original version of this motion was drafted more than a year ago for the previous spring convention that was cancelled. And we reworked it this year to make it the previous version was specific to the year 2020 and sort of urged action within a certain year. And because of the political context of that year, we made significant edits to the motion approved by the team of seconders to make it more of an evergreen policy and focusing less on proportional representation alone and more on promoting the vehicle of citizens' assemblies as a way to improve deliberative democracy in the province, which could be applied not only to electoral reform, but also to controversial issues like municipal amalgamation, for example, among others. And we brought it to the policy workshop that happened a few weeks ago, and there was some really useful feedback from that as well that was incorporated.
Thank you, Anna.
And housing, yes. So, yeah.
Oh, thank you. And I'll ask now if there's any questions or any comments.
There are some in the chat.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I can read those and respond to them. Ola has asked, might including other issues like housing or municipal amalgamation weaken the motion? My response to that is no, I don't believe it does. The Irish Citizens Assembly, which I think is like a global standard, actually addressed 5 or 8 issues sequentially. There was a citizens assembly formed of 100 citizens, and over multiple months, they met and they deliberated and decided on positions on abortion, on the use of referenda, on climate action, and it was, they were compensated for their time and they came up with some really transformative positions. So I think that it's actually a motion made stronger by including multiple issues within it. And Barbara's question, why 27 citizens? I've said at least 27, and I've chosen that just to be reflective of the current size of our elected, our legislature, the elected representation we have. This would be representation by random sortition rather than election, but I think that was part of the rationale to ensure that it is at least as regionally represented, covering the same number of geographies as the current legislature does.
Thank you, Anna. That's great. Any other questions at this point?
How are the citizens chosen?
So when a citizens assembly occurs, it is truly random. They, for example, in the Irish example, they chose geographic areas, and then there was staff selected who literally went to knock on doors, and it was there were some criteria that needed to be met, but it was sort of the first citizen on a street that they would randomly knock on who said yes, that they would wish to participate and give their time and be compensated for it. And they make sure that it in approaching certain citizens that they are representative of gender and racial, age, diversity, for example. And you can get into a lot of the specifics of that, but I don't think that this motion needs to specify that. It's the standard practice. Yeah.
I was going to say that for the purpose of your motion, Anna, that there are best practices out there, and that it would appear that it would be part of, as long as the questioner also knows that it would not be a showstopper for implementation, it would not. There are some best practices.
Yes,
so
and for those who are interested, I direct people to the evidence section of this motion, where there are links to the Irish Citizens Assembly, to Fair Vote Canada's work on best practices in citizens assemblies and so on. So
thank you so much, Ryan Cook. Ryan, could you ask you a question?
Yeah, I was just curious. So if I'm guessing a government would commission this the citizens assembly, how would their mandate be controlled? Like who would give them their marching orders, so to speak? Like if it was put in place by a government to say review electoral reform, how would they then change their mission to say we're going to now talk about or concern ourselves with affordable housing, or could the Legislative Assembly, if the government changed, just say, we've achieved electoral reform, you have no mandate now, or something?
Yeah. So when a Citizens Assembly is commissioned, the commissioning government decides on the topics that it is to address and the duration of time that Citizens Assembly is to exist. So it's not a body that remains there perpetually. It would be, a sort of, if it was formed this year, it would be a 2021 Citizens Assembly to deal with 5 issues. And then when those 5 issues are complete, then it would close. And we might choose to do another one in 5 years' time on, other intractable issues. But yeah, the mandate is defined when the Citizens Assembly is commissioned. And from that point on, the outcomes are very much determined by grassroots deliberation within the Assembly.
Okay, thank you, Anna. Maria,
Thank you.
You have a question or a comment?
Yes, I also have a question about the at least 27, because I've read that Citizens Assemblies usually are kind of a minimum of 50 people because of statistical consideration and sampling size. And I guess between 50 and 100 or 50 and 200. And I was wondering about the 27 too, because it seems like a relatively small number for a citizen assembly.
Thank you, Maria. And I think that's more of a comment than a question. And I don't think if I'm not mistaken, I don't think it is going to result in result in an amendment whereby the proposer would not suggest a number of 27, but some other number.
I would be open to the number being larger, which is why I had at least 27. But I'm aware that we are a small province and that financial considerations might be a barrier to this idea being adopted by parties other than our own. And so that's why I proposed the number of 27, because I think that in a smaller population, a smaller Citizens Assembly is reasonable.
Does that answer your question, Maria?
Yeah, I'm okay with the 27 as at least 27. I'm okay with that. It's just it was just a question about the statistical consideration.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to, given where we are, I'm going to ask for a general poll just to see where we are with the motion. Can I ask everybody to respond to it, please? Okay, can I get the response on the poll, please? Okay, we have 69% in favor. Strong 17, I understand, but neutral. There's 11% who are oppose it, and 3% who still need more clarification. Okay, could I ask for those who have are opposing the motion at this time, is there anybody who would like to simply make a statement as to what their opposition may be? Okay, so we do have a fairly large amount of support for this motion, and those that are against and strongly feel against that the motion should not proceed, I've not heard anything from them. And I'm just going to ask for a process motion here, whereby if there's a motion, Jordan, that we would go ahead and
on how to proceed, whether we need more discussion or
that's correct. Could we do that motion, please? Whether or not we want to, that's the one I'm looking for. We have polls for everything here, it seems. Here we go.
Oh, actually, this is the wrong one.
No, I'm sorry.
Process poll 1.
Process poll 1, please. Eddie. There we go. So I'm going to ask everyone here whether we should proceed to a deciding vote, whether we want to continue discussing the motion at this time, or if we want to have the disagreeing parties to hold a side meeting. Okay, I'm going to ask for the results of that poll, please. And we have 70% proceeding to a deciding vote. Only 8% want to continue discussing, and there's 22% inviting disagreeing parties to hold a side meeting. So, and that would be to hold the side meeting with the proposer. And anyone else who wants to join that side meeting. With 22% wanting to discuss it, and who have some issues with this motion, I believe it warrants a side meeting. I would ask that a breakout group be provided for the disagreeing parties.
If the proponent wants.
If the proponent wants to proceed with she does, okay, thank you, Anna. So I'm going to ask then for the disagreeing parties to go into a side meeting along with the proposer to have a discussion, to come out. And how much time are we going to give them? What's the time we have? 10 minutes, is it?
Yeah.
We have 10, it's a 10-minute side meeting for them to have that discussion.
Well, as long as they need, they'll report at the end of the meeting what the progress is.
At the end of the meeting, if the progress is not sufficient, then we will determine whether we need to go longer or how to proceed at that point.
Either Debbie or Maria.
Okay, thank you very much. So we'll proceed to that side meeting, and for all of you other folks who don't want to be involved, please take a break. It'll be 10 minutes.
Take a break.
For those that are, sorry, no,
Yeah.
Debbie, are you going in the room? It's who's going in the room?
It will be Debbie, I believe, going into the room.
Yeah.
So just to clarify, for those of you who haven't gone into a breakout room on Zoom before, in your toolbar you should see an option there to enter the breakout room if you would like to. If you're one of the people that maybe wants to have this discussion with Anna, and you can also leave the breakout room anytime to come back to the plenary.
Jordan, I'm still not clear if it's Debbie or myself who's going into the breakout room.
It's one of the two of you. So
yeah, but which
so
one?
You have to decide amongst yourselves who wants it.
Have a side conversation about that with Debbie Moran in the chat.
Yeah.
So I at 22% I couldn't. I'm sorry, that was too much.
Okay, so while that's happening, we're going to move on to the fourth policy motion that we have, and so I invite Omer to.
Actually, Omer mentioned that he has to.
Oh, Omer had to go, did he? Okay, so we will move
I do have to go. Sorry so much, guys.
No, we're sorry that we missed it, but we will let you know what's going to happen.
Okay, thank you. See ya.
Jordan, I was gonna go in there to see if Debbie was there.
Maria, can you talk to Jordan on a side?
Okay, sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I will invite Darlene to speak to the provincial tax credit for renters of long-term residential housing motion. Darlene, do you have to unmute her?
Scroll up, please. Thank you. How's my volume? Is it okay? Whereas rental rates in PEI have increased significantly in recent years, Whereas the availability of long-term rental units have greatly decreased as documented by CMHC information on vacancy rates. Whereas significant numbers of long-term rental units have been converted to short-term rentals such as Airbnb. And I forwarded news articles and Airbnb postings. Whereas building of new public housing units has not kept up with demand, which has allowed the vacancy rate to shrink to less than 2%. Whereas the tight rental market is one factor that drives higher rental costs, an example of supply and demand economics. Whereas new builds have premium rental rates. Whereas low and moderate income residents of PEI are challenged to find affordable housing. Could that scroll up a little bit, please? Whereas 3 other provincial jurisdictions, Ontario, Quebec, and Manitoba, have renters credits as part of the provincial portion of the annual income tax assessment. Therefore, be it resolved that the Green Party propose a financial feasibility study in partnership with stakeholders representing all relevant interests to assess the possibility of creating a renter's credit program in Prince Edward Island.
Just take a minute to think about that. So Darlene, has there been any discussion or conversation that has resulted in you wanting to add or amend this?
Yes, there were some comments on Lumino, and I wasn't in time to amend one whereas, and I've done a friendly amendment for the whereas, that is the 4th one down, the one that talked about public housing. So I do have a friendly amendment for that whereas.
Could you please read that for us?
Whereas investment in public housing has been neglected, and that has contributed to the housing crisis, which has allowed the vacancy rate to shrink to less than 2%.
Okay, we've just added that friendly amendment to that whereas.
Is that an accurate?
I would substitute the friendly amendment for the whereas, the original one, please. And
Oh, wait, so sorry, so you don't want to amend it to that?
I was replacing the original whereas with the amendment. Is that
okay? So
okay?
that's kind of what I've done here with the suggestion mode, just to keep track of what the
yes,
original
okay.
one was, and then I just wanted to make sure that it was accurate, that I've taken it down accurately.
The last phrasing was which has allowed the vacancy rate to shrink to less than 2%.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
So it's just on a non-objection basis.
Right, right.
Okay.
Are there any objections to this? See any objections? Okay.
Oh, Ryan.
Ryan.
Yeah, I just had a comment on this from our, just I know we had a meeting on this kind of originally policy development about a month ago. Is there, I thought it was discussed at that time that the scope of the feasibility study would be to, I guess, more broadly find and recommend solutions to our long-term rental housing issues, kind of a macroeconomic problem, not to narrow the scope into just tax credit. Could it be that this is then amended to reflect that, or are we just purely limiting it to just a tax credit for renters?
Darlene, do you have sorry.
Yeah, I think the housing crisis and the availability of is a large, multifaceted problem that could be studied for a very extensive amount of time. The renter's credit could assist a broad amount of people with the capability of meeting their rental commitments. And I think there was also a comment about people who don't pay provincial taxes. There's people who are paying provincial taxes that don't fall under the federal system. The provincial tax assessment stands longer than the federal one. The provincial taxes are less likely to be eliminated. The federal tax is dropped before the provincial one with the kind of tax credit system we currently have. There are low-income people paying provincial tax and no federal tax. I'm not sure if I've addressed all of the question or.
Barbara Della also has a question in the chat. A tax credit applies to people who pay income tax if low-income people earn so little and therefore likely do not pay much income tax. And correct me if I'm wrong, how would they benefit from a tax credit?
Again, there would be very few people who don't pay some provincial tax. Would it address everybody? No, but it would address a large portion of the people who are paying long-term residential housing costs.
Okay, is there any further discussion on this or need for clarification? Shall we take a poll to see a general poll?
Just before you.
Patrick, do you have a question?
Oh, sorry, Patrick.
We need to clarify the amendment, whether it's adopted.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Patrick, you have a question, and then we will need to clarify whether the amendment is adopted.
Yeah, more so just a clarification, I think, to the question on tax credits is there would be the possibility of making it a refundable tax credit, in which case, even if it's not purely reducing the amount of tax you pay, but it could actually pay back. So I think the motion as worded is open enough to that possibility, and that's something a feasibility study could look at. But I think that there's the possibility in that way that it is more broadly applicable.
Yes, I would agree with that because the design of the tax credit, if it is feasible, could have several avenues on which to follow.
I'm wondering if we can ask anyone if they have an objection to the amendment as written. If you do so, you could put your hand up or mention it in the chat.
So no, I'm just gonna.
So no, I don't see any of. Oh, Ryan, you wanted to say something?
Just so you know, and then.
Yeah, just going back to my question earlier, I can understand the idea of having a short-term relief program, and maybe that's the way, could be the outcome of the feasibility study, is to introduce a tax credit or a subsidy for low-income renters until such time that the vacancy increases or rental rates come down relative to income or something like that. But I don't see that this would be, it would be kind of like adding like an entitlement or a I want to use this term lightly, a welfare program that will, you know, it may not really address the long-term structural issue of the housing shortage. And I think that needs to be, you know, I think that it would be better if the amendment were, or the motion were to address that.
So can we address the amendment at this point? Is there any concerns about the amendment? Okay. Ryan, your hand's up again, or is it still? Okay, thank you.
So you can do a general poll.
We're going to do a general poll now to determine, here it is. So if you could vote on, oh, that's the test for agreement on the amendment.
Oh.
So, we told you there'd be glitches. All right, we're going to do a general poll now to determine where we stand on the proposal. And here's your options if you could vote on that. Okay, if we could have the results of the poll. Okay. So with the people who are strongly opposed, 13%, it's an opportunity to present your questions, concerns. If you could indicate that you want to do that, thank you.
Will we set up a breakout room, or could we kick this out to another meeting, or?
That's a very good question.
Whether they should tell the meeting why they're opposed. Right?
Yeah, hold on a sec, just a minute. I think we're going to spend 5 minutes or 4 minutes that we have hearing from the people that are in opposition to this, and then we can make a decision what we're going to do from there.
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to end your discussion here, and I will be bringing you back. But I
Okay, so no one is coming forward. We have two things. We're bringing back the people from the breakout room, and we are in process with this motion. So we need to determine where we're going to go because our time is up.
Sorry, Susan, whenever Martin was talking there, I thought he was addressing this, but he was talking to the breakout room. I've already said I opposed it, and the motion that we were questioning, and I said my bit about the housing kind of economic standpoint. You know, I think that we could move to a general vote on the floor. I don't know. I would move that, move toward that.
Okay, is there anyone else who expressed strong opposition to this motion that would like to speak?
I don't want to express strong opposition to the motion. I just think that there seemed to be a lot of discussion that hasn't happened. I just don't know how ready everyone is to have digested the pros and the cons and proceed to a vote.
Oh, you're muted, just so you know.
Okay, on that basis, I think what we'll do is we'll go to a process poll to poll the members here. as to whether they want to proceed to a vote or whether they continue discussing the motion. And the results of that. Okay, yeah. Okay, for with 37% wanting further discussion, I think we will move in that direction. It is 4:30, so we need to make a decision as to. Now, Maria, we're in the middle of this motion, so we have to decide about that, but we also have to decide about the bigger policy motion process in terms of the motions that are left to discuss and to vote on. So Maria had suggested, Maria, I don't want to speak for you. You had a suggestion to put forward.
Yes, to make a motion that we adjourn this meeting and continue it at a later day, still be in the general meeting. I think that our constitution allows for that.
Okay, and Anna has made a motion that we reconvene in 2 weeks at the same time.
Yeah, that sounds good.
And seconds Maria's motion. So we do have a motion on the table to reconvene in 2 weeks time at 1 p.m. and pick up where we leave off today, which would be, just for clarification, discussing the motion on the renters of long-term rental housing, residential housing. Can we create a poll for that?
Yeah, we have to do a deciding vote poll.
Okay, we'll do a deciding vote poll. So those who are in favor of Maria's motion with Anna's seconding with the clarification that it would be 2 weeks time at 1 p.m. and we pick up then and leave and start where we left off today. That is the motion. So if you could vote now, that would be great. Just to clarify, that's May 8th, which is Mother's Day, by the way. Oh no, the day before Mother's Day. Michelle, did you have something to say?
If it was Mother's Day, I was going to say no. We pick another date.
Sorry, that I keep thinking it's Sunday.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so much. It's very conclusive, 97%. So with that, we need a motion to adjourn this meeting, this AGM and policy motions. I do want to thank everybody for their patience. Michelle moved that. I saw Patrick second that. And thank you again, everybody. It was a lesson for us in learning, and we'll keep going. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. See you in a couple of weeks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
See you soon.
Bye.
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 Sorry.
Am I going to get paid for that?
Okay, yeah, set raise.
Jordan, are you okay to stop the
They asked
recording?
for not voting on Anna's motion.
Yeah, we can stop the recording now.
Okay, just want to make sure it saves.
Yeah, it's saving in the cloud, so
Oh, that's